Two, I'll call this meeting to order. Kirby has volunteered to do a prayer this afternoon.
God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
You know, cold Kirby. All right, are there any changes to the agenda? Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, there is one requested add-on under new business. It would be item C, to approve exceptions to Resolution 1/12/22A for the two actions related to June 8th. That is a request to start the meeting late and to schedule executive session on the previous day. Approve exceptions to Resolution BC 1/12/22A for two actions related to the June 8th, 2022 regular BC meeting.
BC.
Yes.
Second. Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with the one change, addition.
Lisa makes the motion, supported by Jenny. Any other discussion? Lisa makes the motion, seconded by Jenny. Any other discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, Tina. Motion carries. All right, we have an agenda before us. The first item is the oaths of office for the Oneida Nation Arts Board. Stacy Cutbank. Lisa?
Lily?
I don't have my little thing. Just give me one moment. I don't have my oath sheet. It's usually here. Okay, Stacy, are you on the Teams call?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Stacy Cutbank,
hereby promise
hereby promise
to uphold the laws and regulations
to uphold the laws and regulations
of the Oneida Nation,
of the Oneida Nation,
the General Tribal Council,
the General Tribal Council,
and the Oneida Nation Constitution.
and the Oneida Nation Constitution.
I will perform my duties to the best of my ability
I will perform my duties to the best of my ability
and on behalf of the Oneida people
and on behalf of the Oneida people
with honor, respect, dignity, and sincerity,
with honor, respect, dignity, and sincerity,
and will strictly maintain confidential information.
and will strictly maintain confidential information.
I will carry out the duties and responsibilities
I will carry out the duties and responsibilities
as a member of the Oneida Nation Arts Board,
as a member of the Oneida Nation Arts Board,
and all recommendations shall be made
and all recommendations shall be made
in the best interest of the Oneida Nation as a whole.
in the best interest of the Oneida Nation as a whole.
All right, that's it. Congratulations, Stacy.
Yep, congratulations.
Nuncle?
The Government Administrative Office will follow up with paperwork for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right, next up, next section is resolutions. Item A, adopt resolution entitled, minutes. I crossed it off inadvertently. Approve minutes for the April 27th, 2022 business committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Kirby, supported by Jenny. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, now we can move on to resolutions. Item A, adopt resolution titled Additional Emergency Amendments to the Oneida Personnel Policies and Procedures Selection Policy. Clarissa?
Good afternoon. This item starts on page 23 of your packet. So emergency amendments to the Oneida Personal Policies and Procedures were adopted by the Business Committee on November 24th, 2021 to improve the nation's hiring capacity and service delivery in the tight labor markets that had resulted from the COVID-19 pandemic. So these emergency amendments were set to expire on May 26, 2022. When discussing the potential 6-month extension of these emergency amendments, the LOC determined that it was necessary to seek additional emergency amendments to the Oneida Personal Policies and Procedures to clarify inconsistencies that arose as a result of the last emergency amendments. So the proposed emergency amendments to the Oneida Personal Policies and Procedures will maintain the current emergency amendments and also clarify that termination of an employee for cause during their original probationary period shall not be subject to appeal, and clarify that employees who are terminated during their original probation period shall not be paid for any unused accrued vacation or personal days in their final paycheck. So the Oneida Business Committee can temporarily enact legislation when legislation is necessary for the immediate preservation of the public health, safety, or general welfare of the reservation population, and the amendment of the legislation is required sooner than would be possible under the Legislative Procedures Act. A fiscal impact statement and a public meeting are not required for emergency legislation. So the emergency amendments to the Oneida Personal Policies and Procedures are necessary for the preservation of the general welfare of the reservation population. The emergency amendments help simplify and clarify the nation's hiring and selection procedures so that they can be more effective and the nation can improve its hiring capacity. Additionally, observance of the requirements under the LPA for the adoption of these amendments would be contrary to public interest. The process and requirements of the LPA cannot be completed in time to allow the nation the ability to adequately address its hiring selection procedures in these tight labor markets. So the emergency amendments to the Oneida Personal Policies and Procedures will become effective immediately upon adoption by the Oneida Business Committee and will remain effective for 6 months. So we're asking the Business Committee to consider a motion to adopt the resolution entitled Additional Emergency Amendments to the Oneida Personal Policies and Procedures Selection Policy.
All right, thank you, Clarissa, for the overview. Questions, comments from the committee?
Move to approve.
Jenny makes the motion. I can't see who has their hand raised online.
That's me, Tahaze.
Okay, thank you. Jenny makes the
Yes.
motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Lisa. Discussion? Any discussion from the committee? Kirby?
Yeah, just to state that in reviewing the personnel policies and procedures, we spend a lot of time going through the policies and procedures of the tribe line by line. And looking forward to seeing this. It's just a lot of clarification in the changes that are being submitted. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kirby. Any other discussion before I go to the community members?
Do these eventually have to go to General Tribal Council?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I just wanted to ask that question because it just says that we can extend it for 6 months, but doesn't say what happens after that. So thank you.
All right, any other questions before I go to community members? All right, not seeing any, I'll go to Mike Nebraska. You got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tina just clarified a portion of this for me, that this does have to come back to GTC. But what I'm wondering is why this is being presented by council as opposed to being presented by Todd Vanden Heuvel, who directly oversees the HR and the HR hiring processes. Isn't that what we have him for?
Yes, Clarissa?
I just wanted to highlight that the Legislative Operating Committee did work with Todd Vanden Heuvel and other representatives from HRD on the development of these emergency amendments and are continuing to work with them on the development of the permanent amendments. It is the LOC's role to bring proposed legislation to the Business Committee for consideration. So that's why myself and the LOC are here to present proposed legislation.
Okay, shouldn't he also be present though, too? Especially when you're dealing with amending or asking for amendments directly to the Blue Book, as it were?
He is on the Teams meeting, so he is technically
Oh,
present.
yes, I do. Okay. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, any other questions on the adoption of the resolution? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Moving on to item B, adopt resolution entitled amendments to the Budget Management and Control Law. Clarissa?
This item starts on page 103 of your packet. So the Budget Management Control Law sets forth the requirements to be followed by the Business Committee and the Oneida Fund units when preparing the budget to be presented to the General Tribal Council for approval and establish a triennial strategic planning process for the nation's budget. So the Business Committee adopted emergency amendments to the law in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and to address various noncompliance issues through the adoption of resolutions BC 11-2420E, BC 5-1221C, and BC 11-1021B. So the current emergency amendments to the law will expire on May 12th, 2022. So while the emergency amendments were being processed, the LOC was also working on the development of comprehensive amendments to be adopted on a permanent basis. So the LOC has held 25 work meetings to develop comprehensive amendments to the Budget Management Control Law. During the development of the amendments to this law, the LOC collaborated with the nation's treasurer, chief financial officer, assistant chief financial officer, budget analyst, strategic planner, and the business committee. So overall, the proposed amendments to the Budget Management and Control Law will revise the name of the law from the Budget Management and Control Law to the Budget and Finances Law, expand the purpose and policy of this law to address other financial policies and procedures for the nation beyond just the budget process, eliminate the strategic planning provisions from this law, instead providing simply that the Oneida Business Committee should develop and adopt a strategic plan, broad goals, or priorities for the nation that the budget shall reflect. It clarifies the authority and responsibilities of those individuals who play a part in the nation's budget process. It simplifies the budget process and procedure contained in the law in an effort to improve the nation's compliance with the law and provide more flexibility to adjust the budget development and adoption procedure to meet the nation's current circumstances. And the proposed amendments include new provisions which address unbudgeted expenditures, obligated future expenditures, capital contributions, grants, debt, employment and labor allocations, and unbudgeted positions. So the development of the proposed amendments to the Budget Management and Control Law complies with the requirements of the Legislative Procedures Act as it was modified by the suspension of public meetings under the Legislative Procedures Act declaration. So if adopted by the Business Committee today, the proposed amendments to the Budget Management and Control Law would go into effect tomorrow, May 12th, 2022. I do also want to highlight that the adopting resolution found on page 108 of your packet does contain additional directives and deadlines regarding the budget schedule and guidelines, the development of a procurement rule handbook, notification of unbudgeted expenditures to the General Tribal Council, employment cap and labor allocations list, budget contingency planning, and a one-year review of the law. So we're asking the Oneida Business Committee to consider a motion to adopt the resolution entitled Amendments to the Budget Management and Control Law.
All right, thank you, Clarissa, for the overview. Questions, comments from the committee? Action?
Move to approve.
Jenny makes the motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Seconded by David. Any other discussion? All right, I'll go to community member Mike Nebraska. You got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'm just looking at this, and I'm looking at on page 109, line 69, under the whereas there, it states, oops, hold on, sorry, just knocked it out. It states, whereas the amendments to the law include new provisions such which address unbudgeted expenditures, obligated future expenditures, capital contributions, grants, debt employment, and labor allocations, and unbudgeted positions. To me, that is very dangerous. And the reason why I state that is because you can have departments hiring people that were not budgeted for, and they're just slyly slipped in. And they can say, oh, well, it was an unbudgeted process. Well, we could do that with just about anything. And if there's not going to be any accountability to that, that is extremely dangerous because we should be looking at capping employment roles right now. It's been stated over and over and over again. And I don't know at what point we have to get to. Does it take GTC to say that's it, no more, and we're no hiring, a permanent freeze on everything? Because if we're not going to watch these numbers and we're not going to control these numbers, there's not going to be anything left.
All right, does that conclude your comments, Mike?
Yeah, it does. So, and that's just noted for the record. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any other questions, comments? Clarissa?
Just to provide clarification to Mike's comment, in section 121.9-3 of the proposed amendments to the Budget Management and Control Law, this is where it talks about unbudgeted positions. And in this section, it provides that any position which has not been specifically budgeted for and included in the nation's labor allocation list shall be prohibited. So I think the proposed amendments to the law address the concern that Mike shared with us today.
All right, thank you, Clarissa.
I don't think it does. Thank you for that, Clarissa, your response, but I don't believe it does. And I state that because then nothing has been addressed with when you say, okay, it's been unbudgeted for and it's been put in there, but what stops management from putting it in there, say midstream? And GTC has not met in 2 years to approve of a budget. So who's been authorized to do that?
Mike, the law is specifically saying it's prohibited.
Right. But it's prohibited under law, but then because GTC has not met in 2 years to approve of the budget, how has that been done? Who's been authorized to do that? If it's prohibited, but yet we know we still have people hired and people terminated and people leaving, who's in charge of all of that? Or who can make that determination?
Mike, I think you've got two different issues going here. So unbudgeted personnel is is prohibited under this law, and all the other functions that are budgeted, such as hiring and terminations and all that stuff, is still under the usual process of getting their budgets verified for a position to be posted by their supervisor or the top level management or whatever it is. Still continues.
How did I get those two confused? Because I look at it and say if it's unbudgeted for, but the manager or whatever department decides to put that into their budget, even though it should technically be prohibited, what's stopping that from happening?
Clarissa?
What's stopping that from happening is the proposed amendments to the law. So section 121.9 addresses employment and labor allocations. So now the nation will have an employment cap, and it's the treasurer and the CFO identify a maximum number of full-time equivalent employees to be employed by the nation, and that number is then adopted by the United Business Committee through resolution. Once we have an employment cap number set, then the treasurer, the chief financial officer, executive managers, and the executive human resources director utilize that employment cap to develop a labor allocations list. So that labor allocations list identifies the number of full-time equivalent employees each employment area of the nation is allocated. And again, that labor allocations list is adopted by the business committee through resolution. So I believe this section of the law is attempting to kind of get at and address rampant hiring of unbudgeted positions and kind of add in some control there to address who's hired and in what way.
So do we know when the labor allocations list will be brought forward?
Yes, the adopting resolution includes a deadline for both the employment cap number, which I believe is June 1st. The treasurer shall be including the employment cap number in her budget schedule and guidelines resolution that will come forward. And then the actual labor allocations list is required to come forward 30 days after the adoption of the employment cap number.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Your time has also expired, so.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? If not, we have a motion by Jenny, seconded by David, to adopt the resolution. All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Tina?
Mr. Chairman, I'm in support of the resolution, but I think some of the dates are very aggressive, such as June 1st. But that's just for the record.
All right, thank you, Tina. Lisa?
For the record, I'd like to thank the LOC and Finance and the Treasurer for bringing forward these amendments. They were underway for a number of months, and I believe, so that's the end of my for the record.
Thank you.
But I believe the deadlines identified in this, the resolution were brought to the last work session and reviewed by, I think, Finance was available there as well. You weren't at the work session?
If I could point out, I
Sure.
should mention that that date was problematic, as the treasurer noted. Importantly, some reasonableness and understanding that we've already got 2 weeks. So adapting the calendar relative to a revised, I'll call it communication to all the divisions would need to be transacted. But no, we weren't at the work meetings. Thank you.
Okay. My understanding is that Finance was, included in all the work sessions. I wasn't at the last one, so I guess I just need to, thanks.
All right, thank you. Jenny?
I do believe finance was at the previous work meetings, the work meetings for the law. You were included in all of that, correct?
The final revisions where our input was taken measure, no. The changes were made subsequent to that, and no, we weren't at those sessions. Thank you.
So out of the 28 work meetings that we had,
I'd have to go back and look. All I'm saying is at the end, the final versions, we were not invited to those sessions. To my recollection.
okay. I'm sorry, I thought finance was invited to all the work meetings, the BC work meetings.
LOC work meetings.
This is a LLC work meeting, not a BC work meeting.
The work meeting that I was referring to is the last BC work session, that this resolution was brought to that work session to go over the deadlines. I believe that was the intent of the discussion at that work session.
Clarissa?
Yes, so the LOC did bring the proposed adopting resolution with blank deadline dates to the last BC work session for discussion. And that morning, a different resolution was submitted by Ray Skinador on behalf of herself, Larry Barton, and Rolinda, that contained their suggestions for the proposed deadlines dates. So they're the ones that came up with the dates, and then in the BC work session, the BC discussed and agreed with those proposals at that time.
Thank you for the clarification, Clarissa.
Can I just add that, we were basically given a directive to fill in the blanks, and so we did. It doesn't mean it's ideal. We were under a lot of pressure to get something concluded because of today's deadline to approve this for tomorrow. I think the other consideration that we discussed is that we know that September 30th is right around the corner from a planning standpoint. And I think the other thing is, from our standpoint, we're still have been waiting for all the wage adjustments to be considered and approved, and we are just finalizing those this week. And again, that puts pressure on the dates to conclude a budget timely. This is basically the mandate going forward. We'll do our best to accommodate it, but it is very aggressive. And, we understood that we had to get this done. So I just want everybody else to understand that when finance starts rolling out a schedule, everybody's going to be under the pressure, not just us. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tina. All right, if there's no other questions, comments, we'll move on to item C. Adopt resolution entitled Amendments to the Oneida Nation Gaming Ordinance. Clarissa?
This item starts on page 169 of your packet. So the Oneida Nation Gaming Ordinance, often referred to as ONGO, regulates all gaming activities under the jurisdiction of the nation and is intended to govern the gaming activities of all persons, gaming employees, consultants, business entities, vendors, boards, committees, commissions, and hearing bodies. So emergency amendments were adopted and extended by the Oneida Business Committee through resolutions BC 51221D and BC 111021A to address the placement of security under the Oneida Police Department to eliminate legal claims that could expose the nation to unnecessary litigation costs, regardless of merit or prevailing party, if not disposed of in an expeditious manner. So the emergency amendments to ONGO will now expire on May 12th, 2022. So the LOC has processed the permanent adoption of amendments to ONGO. Since this item had been added to the active files list, the LOC's held 17 work meetings, some of which were held in collaboration with representatives from the Oneida Law Office, Oneida Police Department, Internal Security Department, Oneida Gaming Commission, Gaming Management, and the Oneida Police Commission. So the proposed amendments to ONGO will remove the Security Department from under the supervision of the Oneida Police Department. ONGO will now provide that when investigations involve or uncover a possible criminal or quasi-criminal activity, the Gaming Security Department shall report the activity to the Oneida Police Department for further review and investigation by the Oneida Police Department under its separate departmental authority. The requirement that all reports of Gaming Security Department must be copied to the Oneida Gaming Commission, previously found in Section 501.9-1, was removed from the law. Reference to the Oneida Police Department in Section 501.9-2 was also removed and replaced with the Security Director in regard to the responsibility to collaborate with the Gaming General Manager and the Oneida Gaming Commission to enter into an agreement subject to ratification by the Business Committee describing their responsibilities and reporting requirements under ONGO. So the development of the proposed amendments to ONGO complied with the requirements of the Legislative Procedures Act as it was modified by the suspension of public meetings under the Legislative Procedures Act declaration. If adopted by the Oneida Business Committee today, the proposed amendments to ONGO would go into effect tomorrow, May 12th, 2022. I do also want to highlight that the adopting resolution found on page 174 of your packet does contain the additional directive that the Oneida Business Committee shall be responsible for the supervision and oversight of the Security Department, with the Security Department reporting directly to the Oneida Business Committee per the process and schedule set by the Oneida Business Committee until such a time that the Oneida Nation Law Enforcement Ordinance can be amended to address the supervision of the Security Department by a proposed Public Safety Commission. So we're asking the Oneida Business Committee to consider a motion to adopt the resolution entitled Amendments to the Oneida Nation Gaming Ordinance.
All right, thank you, Clarissa, for the overview. We're open for questions, comments, or discussion from the committee or action.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Jenny makes the motion. Is there a second?
Support.
Supported by Kirby. Discussion, Lisa?
Is there a time frame for the public safety ordinance?
The LOC discussed that amending the Oneida Law Enforcement Ordinance would be a high priority moving forward. So we don't have an exact time frame yet, though.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments from the committee before I go to the community? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to Mike Nebraska. You got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. Is the Public Safety Commission the same as the OPD Board, Committee, and Commission? Or is that something completely different now that one needs to be established, that Public Safety Commission? And then the second one is, how does security reporting directly to the OBC now instead of OPD stop any type of liability?
Carissa?
In regard to your first question on the Public Safety Commission, so the intent is to amend the Oneida Nation Law Enforcement Ordinance to expand the scope of the Oneida Police Commission and kind of transform that into the Oneida Safety Commission so that that commission could have oversight authority over not only the police department, but the security department, as well as the conservation wardens, and any future safety-oriented departments like a fire department if the nation ever were to get one. So that doesn't currently exist. That's just the intention of the LOC to move forward with amendments to the United Nation Law Enforcement Ordinance to accomplish that. In regard to the second question, there was a liability concern with the supervision of the security department within the Oneida Police Department. So by removing the security department from under the supervision of the Oneida Police Department, that litigation concern was eliminated.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any other discussion on the action? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those, motion by Jenny, seconded by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Move on to item D. Adopt the resolution titled BIA Solid Waste Disposal Fiscal Year 22. Resolution starts on page 248. This is for the nation authorizes and submits the application to the BIA Solid Waste Disposal Grant Program for $30,000 with no match to support 2 curbside collection events for large and bulky items for the United Nations Solid Waste and Recycling customers.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
The motion by David, supported by Kirby. Discussion. Mike, you get your hand up for this item, or is it up from before? All right, no questions from the committee. Mike, you have your hand up? Oh, must have stepped away. All right, if there are no questions on the adoption of the resolution for the BIA solid waste disposal for fiscal year 22, motion by David, supported by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item E, adopt resolution entitled extension. Adopt resolution entitled extension of the declaration of public health state of emergency until July of 22.
So moved.
There's a motion by Jenny,
Second.
seconded by David. Discussion? Kirby?
Yeah, do we have someone from the health center or the public health officers online or to answer questions? As not a health professional or expert in pandemics, I wanted to know what were some of the rationale for the 2-month extension. I felt that the 2-month extension was overzealous, and why they didn't go for a month. We can always extend it another month. Just from knowledge I have is we've been like 0 cases to 1 every week for the last 2-3 weeks.
I think we had I guess the same discussion last couple of times. I think this was up for adoption, just the length of time authorized in the emergency management laws for the public health thing to be able to be extended for up to 2 months. And I think that's just been the general practice, but other than that, that's just what's in the law. And then for the other portion as to, I guess the continued cases, I think we all sit on the COVID updates on Monday mornings, where we hear from Comprehensive Health and the public health officer. And you're correct, Kirby. We had 0 cases for a number of weeks, and then kind of bouncing and staying in the single digits for a while, and continuing to be there. But I think as the statewide numbers continue to go up again, and then some of the surrounding areas, Menominee, I think county, and was one of them, and Shawano County, another neighboring to our counties, numbers are increasing as well. And so I think it's just prudent safety measure to, again, keep things in place to be able to react quickly. But again, it is, up to the committee to decide if we're going to move away. I think we've been over the many months now decreasing the amount of safety measures in place. Obviously, within the last week or so, we know gaming took down some of their additional, what was, I guess, left of most of the plexiglass in the casino. They left some of the plexiglass up in the bingo area for some of the customers that actually prefer it. So I think it's just, hopefully, I, along with it, and probably everybody else, just want to see this pandemic over so we can learn from it, continue to learn from it and move forward and make sure that we're being safe as possible through these types of things. But I guess at this point, we're nearly ready to be out of this, but not quite there yet, by my opinion. But I'll go to Jenny.
Just to help clarify, Kirby, I know, different ones have been asking, how can we have a GTC if we're still under the public health state of emergency? That's the other resolution in regards to gathering. So the public health state of emergency allows us to still receive funds for certain areas like TANF. So that's one of the reasons why we're continuing to stay under there, to help those families that are in need. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, I'll go to Lisa Liggins.
Do you have a motion on the floor?
Yes, there's a motion by Jenny, seconded by David.
Okay. Since our current public health state of emergency goes through, I believe, March 24th, or I'm sorry, May 24th, I'd prefer to evaluate this closer to that date because that's almost 2 weeks away. And a lot can change in 2 weeks. So I'd prefer to hold a special meeting on the afternoon of the 23rd, if possible, to make a determination on this resolution.
All right, thank you, Lisa. We got a few hands up here. Kirby?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify too, the recommendation and going through this pandemic, I've always supported the recommendation of our professionals, the doctor, the community health director, and our community health officer. And this is their recommendation to July 22nd. So I don't feel that it's appropriate at this time to start challenging them. And it is their recommendation. They are the professionals, and I just wanted to hear their rationale on going that far out at this time, knowing that our numbers are low. But I do support this based on their recommendation.
All right, thank you, Kirby. David?
And on Monday for the public comment period, they did mention that the pandemic is not over, and the numbers are starting to grow back in certain areas. Maybe not just directly here, but they are coming back, and just as FYI, that's what David said on Monday. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Tina?
Yes, on Monday, we had an update on the status of COVID in the state, and it was said by the health professionals that there was a significant increase in the state among American Indians. And I said, well, can you, one, define significant increase, and two, what portions of the state are the American Indian population seeing an increase? Well, they said the increases were up, like was said earlier, Shawano-Menominee County. And then I asked, well, what are the numbers here? And here in Brown-Outagamie County, I was told that it was a significant increase, meant it went from 5 cases to 11 cases in both counties. Well, so I think the statement of significant increase is skewed for those reasons. And I can't support a 2-month extension if it's that low. And I thought there was agreement that when we got to a point where it would be low, that we would end the pandemic resolutions that affect the ability for people to either congregate or participate in certain provisions that were created throughout the pandemic. I think we've done a great job overall addressing this issue, but, maybe we just need to take small steps, and I think we have been, but I think we need to continue to take small steps to open up. And I'm not in support of this being extended to July 22nd without tangible information to make that determination based on the report. We get some charts. The charts have shown that there's a significant decrease, if anything, in the numbers. So I'm not in support of the resolution for that reason, unless there's something more tangible that we can be given, more information or documentation that says otherwise, but I'm just not seeing that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tina. Lisa? Liggins?
Just to clarify, Jenny had made a comment as well about public gatherings. That resolution regarding guidance for public gatherings, indoor and outdoor safety guidance related to COVID-19. The last one we adopted was in March, and that expired on April 27th, 2022. So we currently don't have a resolution in place providing that guidance. That doesn't mean we can't continue to follow the guidance provided in that resolution, but I just want to clarify that that resolution itself is no longer in place. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Go to the people online. Kaylin Gresham?
Thank you. So as far as from Michelle asked me about extending the recommendations, and I said yes. For one, again, like Jenny explained, there are two different things about gathering. The United States and the state of Wisconsin are still under a public health state of emergency. Things are going on, things are happening, people are still gathering. The biggest thing with extending the public health state of emergency just allows the public health officer to make recommendation changes if something needs to happen quickly. And yes, this morning on our public health discussion, there's currently 17 counties in Wisconsin that are at the medium for what they call tracking of cases. And so they're predicting another surge is coming. And I would recommend that you guys extend the public health state of emergency. It doesn't mean that you can't come back in a month and lift it. It's just extending it along with giving, like we had said before, access to different kinds of funding and things like that. If you end the state of emergency, that ends our access to some different funding options that the nation's provided because we continue to stay under that emergency. I just wanted to let you guys know that.
All right, thank you, Kaylin. Mark Paulus, GM.
Yeah, I'll go just to more or less reiterate what was just stated. I did have a related conversation with Debbie Danforth at Comprehensive Health, and the public health state of emergency, that can operate in the background. We can still open up offices, we can still resume activities, we can still have group functions while the public health state of emergency operates in the background. By having the public health emergency in place, the nation can quickly pivot if there is an increase in rates. And at this point, you're not going to find, or you probably will not find, a public health official that will state that the pandemic is over. The pandemic is not over. There's not certainty as to what the future holds. So it's important to keep the public health state of emergency in place just in case the nation has to pivot. It doesn't prevent us from gathering, does not prevent activities from taking place. It does not prevent offices from opening. It's just a safety measure. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Otherwise, we'll go to community member Mike Nebraska. You got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure who to address this question and comment to. Maybe Amy Spears and Mark. Amy had mentioned that if we do lift this state of emergency, we lose access to a lot of money. Do we know how much money and how many grants we would lose money to? Because according to what Mark had just stated, we could still open up little by little, as I understand it, or have gatherings, but just have that operating in the background. So from the background perspective, how much do we stand to lose? Can Amy Spears answer that, or how many grants we would then lose, and what that total of the cost would be?
All right, Mike. Yeah, that was Kaylin Gresham, the Emergency Management Director, that was speaking previously, not Amy Spears.
I'm sorry, Kaylin Gresham then. I'm sorry.
Right,
So, Mike, to answer your question, I don't know the exact amount of the funding. I do know that when it comes to an emergency, they have start dates and they have end dates. And so when we end this public health state of emergency, at that date, there are certain things that will no longer be able, we will no longer be able to request funding for anything that happens after that date. Not saying that we can't put it back in place, but to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to end it and restart it again when continuing to stay within, and exactly everything that Mark said. There's still a public health state of emergency in the state of Wisconsin, and things are opening up, things are changing. It just gives us the option to make those quick decisions should we need to if things change within the reservation for the protection of the people.
But he also stated that it could operate in the background. So if it
Yes,
can-
and that's what it has been doing. And I think that part of the confusion is that along with the public health state of emergency, they also adopted a resolution for gathering and an opening, putting in place, closing some of those buildings. Those were two separate things. And so, yes, the state of emergency can continue to operate in the background, and there is no reason that we need to end it. It can just continue going as it has been. I hope that is a little bit more clear.
Nah, I'm getting lost in the translations here, but that's okay. I'll
I think Joanne also has some to add.
Thank you. The question is why not just let the public health state of emergency move forward? All of the other restrictions themselves have lapsed, given the change in the variants, the transmission rates, vaccination rates, et cetera. So the public health state of emergency declaration under the emergency management law is in place for a specific reason. We have the ongoing effects of a pandemic shifting into an endemic or local application where flare-ups can occur, and the nation needs to be able to respond quickly. So if we need to put a masking order back in place for all of our operations, that public health emergency allows us to do so. Right now, the only thing that is in effect is the declaration of a public health emergency. What that resolution allows us access to is through our emergency management office, KALEN, some federal funding for emergencies. There are some funds through self-governance for some rental assistance that are those that are impacted by COVID and required to quarantine. And there are some other small grants throughout the organization. That's not the primary reason why the business committee would consider keeping a public health emergency declaration in place. The primary reason would be the need to move quickly to protect this area should a flare-up occur within Brown or Outagamie County, within the reservation, within this part of the state. They can't do that. The public health officer can't institute a masking order or other necessary activities if there's not a public health emergency in place. We would have to go through the entire process of declaring a new public health state of emergency. Kalen's comment, Mark Paulus's comment that this simply right now it's working in the background that gives us options to respond. That's an accurate assessment of the public health state of emergency declaration in place now. And that's why the business committee would be presented a resolution for adoption so that we can act if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you. So does that mask mandate then come into play for a GTC meeting, or can it? Because I know Chief Counsel just stated that Kalen Gresham or whoever that officer is, that public health officer, wouldn't have the power to order that mask mandate. So if we kind of keep this all in play, can it then be ordered and say those who wish to come to a GTC meeting must be masked?
All right, thank you, Mike. Your time has expired, but go ahead, Joanne.
The public health officer has the authority under the emergency management law to issue those types of public safety orders. The materials that were sent out to the members for the May 31st General Tribal Council meeting, should nothing interfere between now and then that would require it to be canceled for the public health, requires members to wear a mask when they go into the room. So that's already in place in order to protect those members that are attending a General Tribal Council meeting. You'll find that on like the fourth fourth page of the materials in the meeting requirements. Because this is our first General Tribal Council meeting, we're gathering back together. We're trying to be as safe as we can while still allow members to participate and act in their government in a General Tribal Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Lisa? Oh, you're good, all right. All right, if there's no other discussion, there's a motion by Jenny, seconded by David, to adopt a resolution entitled Extension of the Public Health State of Emergency until July 22nd of 2022. No other discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstaining?
Abstain.
A motion carries with one abstention. Tina? Lisa?
I have a subsequent motion. I'd like to make a motion, so just for a little background, Jameson Wilson has been handling the call center and has been putting together these, requesting the information from the public health officer and putting together the information, but really, all the information should just be coming from the public health officer moving forward, so that those individuals are here. When you put an item on the agenda, you're expected to be here to represent it, to be able to answer some of the questions that Kirby had and Tina had as well. So I would like to make a motion to direct the public health officer to be responsible for bringing back any extensions to the public health state of emergency.
All right, Lisa makes the motion, seconded by Tina. Any discussion on the topic?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that motion?
To direct the public health officer to be responsible for bringing back any extensions to the public health state of emergency.
Okay.
All right, not seeing any questions, we'll vote on the motion. Motion by Lisa, supported by Tina. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you, everyone. That brings us to item F, adopt resolution entitled Nomination of Myself to the United States Government Accountability Office Tribal Advisory Council.
So moved.
There's a motion by Jenny,
Second.
seconded by Lisa. Discussion? It's 2 meetings a year. This is the first ever, so not real sure on what the logistics are going to be. Brand new Tribal Advisory Council.
Can you have Clarissa give like a little background?
Candace?
Or Candace, I'm sorry. Clarissa, sorry.
Sure, I can give a background on it. So the U.S. Government Accountability Office, or the GAO, intends to form its first standing tribal advisory committee. The GAO is an independent, nonpartisan agency that works with Congress to examine how taxpayer dollars are spent and provides Congress and federal agencies with objective, nonpartisan, fact-based information to help the government save money and work more efficiently. The GAO conducts reviews of federal agencies and programs, including those that serve tribes, their citizens, and descendants. They review a broad range of topics that concern tribes, including healthcare, education, economic development, infrastructure, environmental protection, justice. GAO oversees federal programs that serve tribes and their citizens and help Congress determine how best to meet the government's longstanding commitments to tribes. The Tribal Advisory Committee will advise the GAO on vital and emerging issues affecting tribes and indigenous peoples for the purpose of informing GAO's strategic goals and priorities with respect to the agency's work evaluating federal programs serving tribes and related topics. On January 26th, the Business Committee did make a motion to nominate Chairman Hill to serve on the Tribal Advisory Committee. However, the Federal Register notice that was published in April states that nominees who are elected or appointed leaders of federally recognized tribes shall contain a tribal resolution certifying their nomination. So this resolution satisfies that requirement. Should the BC approve this resolution, self-governance will submit the nomination packet by the due date of May 20th, 2022.
All right, thank you, Candace, for the overview. Any other discussion? All right, not seeing any hands being raised, we'll go to the vote. Motion by Jenny, seconded by Lisa, to adopt the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstentions, motion carries. All right, thank you, everyone. Yeah, won't go. All right, that moves us on to standing committees. Item A, Legislative Operating Committee, accept the April 20th, 2022 regular Legislative Operating Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion by Jenny, seconded by Lisa. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, that concludes that section. Next one is standing items. Item A, the ARPA, FRF, and Tribal Contribution Savings Submissions. Number 1, accept the Oneida Nation Student Relief Fund Program Follow-Up Report. That starts on page 291, 292-ish. All right, I'll turn it over to Jackie and Mark if they have anything they want to overview on.
Good afternoon. Just a quick note that Jackie and her team are planning to bring forward some matters related to the higher education program, bring those forward to a BC work session. And I know sometimes those comments and conversations creep into the SRF topic. So just wanted to build awareness that there is intent to bring the dialogue around the higher education program to a future BC work session. Thank you. I'll pass this over to Jacqueline Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to mention that today I do have a time conflict. I do need to leave the meeting today by 2:55 p.m. for a hiring appointment. So just to make that note up front, we are on page 293 in the packet. And the purpose of the report today was to bring back a student relief funding recommendation for future funding for the fall semester. So that was our directive at the April 13th meeting. Here to talk about that directive and the recommendation. The Student Relief Fund was passed by BC Resolution on December 8th, 21, number D, and it was for supplying post-secondary educational funds to eligible Oneida members for duplicate or lesser degrees, professional development and training, certifications, licenses, and funds for suspended Oneida higher education scholarship students. At the last meeting, we were talking about the fall semester and the potential for future funding. So to provide that information, we had meetings with Oneida Higher Ed Program, the General Manager's Office, and key education and training administrative personnel. So the recommendation for today is that the Oneida Higher Ed Education Program will submit a request to the ARPA FRF portal, or otherwise known as the ARPA TCS, or Tribal Savings Contribution Portal, by June 3rd of 2022 for the amount of $2 million. This will increase the total funding from the original level of $4 million to $6 million with a conclusion date of December 31st, 2022, or when the funds are depleted. This provides about 35 weeks of additional student relief funding for about 9 months of funding for this year. This also gives us time to communicate with students, again, 35 weeks that the SRF is scheduled to end, and the anticipated end date is December 31st. The program has supplied an opportunity for tribal members to get a start on their post-secondary and professional training and certification goals. It also allowed people to have a chance who are suspended from the current Oneida Higher Ed Scholarship to get them back in good standing or to make progress towards that good standing. We have provided tribal members with opportunities to begin the process of improving their employment skills with the goal of finding improved employment options as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So that is our proposal for consideration, is to ask for the additional $2 million to take place by June 3rd by a submittal to the ARPA TSC portal. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jackie. Questions, comments? Action? Jenny?
Jackie, question for you. Okay,
Okay.
I understand this comes from, you're gonna submit 2 million for the ARPA funds. What about after that then? Will you request an increase in your budget for like 23, 24?
Yes, great question, Jenny. We are anticipating and projecting to make additional increases to the Oneida Higher Ed program under a different venue under the budgeting process. We had thought about scaling the program back a bit and making it for suspended students. So again, providing more opportunities for more tribal members to get off the suspension list and onto the Oneida Higher Ed Scholarship Program. We feel that's the best venue for post-secondary students to acquire those skills. So we're hoping to make that projection in the budgeting process when that takes place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve, to accept?
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Jenny, seconded by Lisa, to accept the report and forward to the June 3rd submission date, deadline? Is that what you're asking, Jenny?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you.
No, accept the report.
Just accept the
Within her
report?
report.
Okay,
She's
accept the
gonna do that.
report. All right. Discussion, Marie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious, I didn't hear what Jenny had asked, but I was curious, is there a plan to transition the program into the regular Oneida Higher Education Scholarship Program? And I think I heard part yes, but I wasn't 100% sure. Is that what you were stating, Jackie?
Yes, Marie, that is what I was stating. It will be a separate program, not underneath the Oneida Higher Education Scholarship, but it will be under the Oneida Higher Education Program, so a separate fund unit.
Okay.
As the Oneida Higher Ed Scholarship has a separate resolution with that one.
Okay, thank you. I'm just in between connecting and stuff, so I just heard part of it, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee before I go to the
I
committee?
do have one
Tina?
question, please. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Your report shows that 229 students are furthering their degrees, getting a secondary or a different degree aside from what they may already have. And it says 94 students are students who have been suspended, and 45 students are seeking other unidentified professional training development certifications. I guess, what is your rationale to not continue to serve the 370 students? Because it sounds like what I heard you say, Jackie, is that you were going to propose funding for students who are suspended, which is 94 out of the 370. Is that what I heard? And can you give me a reason why?
Yes, that is exactly what we're proposing, is to work and continue to work with students that have been suspended. The other parts of this program are best suited under different types of functions, meaning either a HRD training and development function, as about 30% of the participants using this program are currently employees of the Oneida Nation. And really, there should be training that would be offered through their departmental programs with supervisor input. The other part of it then for the community members would be workforce development type of tactics or programming that would really assist more so than the Oneida Higher Ed programming. Our Oneida Higher Ed programming is real specific and geared to post-secondary, where those other venues would be better suited with a workforce development. So getting people the right skills they need for career progression and getting them more employable is really, again, workforce development. Thank you.
Do you have any follow-up questions, Tina, before I go on?
I don't know if that's necessarily, I agree with that HRD should be knowing the asking to help students complete their other degrees that they're currently pursuing. I don't think HRD is equipped to do that type of a task. I think it would be more suited in the higher ed department. I understand it's something in addition or new to what you were currently doing, but at the same time, you have accommodated this type of need throughout the pandemic. So you actually would be better suited than HRD to continue this type of program or service to help further education our tribal members.
All right, thank you, Tina. I think I can probably take a portion of that also to, I think what Jackie was saying with some of the certificate programs and their tribal member employees is that there is a line for education and training allotted for. And so like when I was at DPW working in the electrical department, the department paid for me to go to NWTC to take electrical code classes as a part of my job training, as rather than going through the higher education department to go get that certificate. And that way, the supervisor in the area, I hoped and I'm assured that he knew exactly what I needed to further my education for the electrical department, what they needed, so they were able to get me into the right program that would help me succeed in the electrical department. So I think that's what she's referring to as for that portion of it. But I also, I guess, have questions similarly to Tina's as to the second, a second bachelor's degree. So what happens to all those, 100-something students that are getting a second bachelor's degree, or I don't think there's many getting a second master's degree, but primarily bachelor degree. What happens with those students? Because I know the higher education scholarship program doesn't cover that.
I can respond to that. That would be a great point for us to have a working session meeting to discuss further some of the vision for the Oneida Business Committee and how to go forward. Typically under the Oneida Higher Ed Scholarship Program, the duplicate degrees are not, we don't allow for those in that wording and in that programming, typically because it lessens the chance to acquire more federal financial aid for the student, where we could spend less tribal contribution dollars on an education if somebody could use federal funding. So it would be great to have a visioning session and have those conversations about how many people really are in need of a duplicate bachelor's degree or further education. We don't have the data currently from this program yet, as it ends on December 31st, and not quite sure how it's going to fit together, but would like to review that information and have further dialogue with the committee and find out the vision for next steps and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Marie? We can't hear you, Marie.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Never mind. I will pass.
All right, thank you. You were starting to lose connection. All right, any other committee questions, comments from the committee before I go to community members? All right, not seeing. We'll go to Mike Nebraska. You got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a few questions here. Jenny, I think it was you that had asked if Oneida Higher Education was to request a higher budget next year. And I really didn't get an answer, or didn't hear an answer to that question. Are they going to request additional funds? Because if this is ending as of effective December 31 of this year, it's my understanding that Oneida Higher Ed has always had residual funds and kind of rolled it back over into their pot. If they're truly helping the people like they say they are and what they're doing, then why is there a residual budget? I was the one who initially brought forward that tiered system about 25 to 30 years ago. And I rarely checked up on it because I didn't have a need to. Now, all of a sudden, here we are 25 to 30 years later, and I go back and start looking at things, and it's been completely perverted and subverted. And by that, I mean, you weren't helping the people the way you should. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been, what was it, 722 people over 20 years that were on suspension? That's absolutely insane, especially when we got a residual budget at the end of each year. So I'm wondering why this is going to end as of December 31st when there's plenty of ARPA funds still available to push this program well into 24 and even into 25. And then when she talked about, or when this program was initially brought forward by a community member back in, I want to say last May, about a year ago, April, May, it was shortly after that time that it was noticed that the OBC resolution didn't match the SOPs. And so it was requested that that be done. And here we are almost a year later, and that hasn't been done. And I'm wondering why. Additionally, I have two separate individuals going to different schools and have their financial needs analysis, which they gratefully submitted a copy to me. And both of them are saying about the same thing, that the $1,200 that's currently being given is still far short of what their records reflect on the financial needs analysis. Each one says slightly over $1,400, and one says closer to $1,500. So we're still below that threshold. So why they're saying that 59% is going to, according to the report, 59% of those funds are going to the expense line. Well, yeah, but even then, it still falls way short. So I'm wondering why that's happening and why that continues to happen. Is it because higher ed doesn't want the SOP to align with the BC resolution that was offered? Or is it simply they don't like this program and don't want to administer it? Because that's the only conclusion I can come to.
Does that conclude your questions, Mike, for now?
Yeah, until I hear some kind of responses.
All right, Jackie?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of this funding program, I think we have to clarify, we're getting a little confused on what funding program we are discussing today. This one is the Student Relief Fund and not the Oneida Higher Ed Scholarship Fund. So the Oneida Higher Ed Scholarship Fund is the program that had approximately 700 students that were on the suspended list. But that's been over the last 30 years. So that just that point of clarification. The Student Relief Fund is new to the Oneida Higher Ed program, and it started in January. So this is new programming for us and still working on administrating and figuring out some of the things that we need to do for the program to make it effective. The 59% expense line that's in the report is just an estimate on the number of comparing the total amount of the award per student compared with room and board to tuition and books. And 59% was taken from tuition for Wisconsin schools online and the information that's provided out there. So it was a research point that we had just to help us identify the type of funding package that we need to put together. In terms of the financial needs analysis and needs assessment, a lot of those were not being required initially because we wanted a flat rate for stipends, and that was the design of this program. So it was initially done intentionally up front. In terms of the SOP and not aligning with the resolution, we had 2, possibly 3 attorneys reviewing the SOP along with the resolution. So I'm going to support the fact that it is aligned with the resolution from a legal standpoint. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Jackie, and also noting that, Mike, your 5 minutes has expired.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, there is a motion by Jenny, second by Lisa, to accept the Student Relief Fund Program Follow-Up Report. All right, not seeing no other hands being raised, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Mark. All right, that brings us to travel reports. Item A, approve travel report for Councilwoman Marie Summers, testimony before the Senate Committee on Economic Disparities in Washington DC, April 6th and 7th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Jenny makes the motion, supported by Lisa. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next section is travel requests. Item A, approve a travel request for myself and Secretary Liggins to the National Congress of American Indians Mid-Year Conference and Marketplace, Anchorage, Alaska, June 12th through the 16th.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Jenny, seconded by David. Discussion? Kirby?
Could we amend that to add up to 3 council members to attend it?
Sure. I mean, motioner, seconder.
Yes, and I would like to be considered for that third, but I would know within 2 weeks. If that's okay.
All right, motioner, second to concur to approve for up to 3. And Jenny's stating she would like to attend but would know quickly because travel arrangements are gonna be filled fast. All right, any other discussion? All right, not seeing any, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. That brings us to item B, approved travel request for Councilman Daniel Guzman King, fiscal year 2023 Bemidji area pre-negotiation meeting in Bloomington, Minnesota, June 8th through the 10th.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by Jenny, supported by David. Discussion? Not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. That brings us to item C, approved travel requests for Councilman Daniel Guzman to local government and advisory committee and small community advisory subcommittee, public meeting, Washington DC, June 22nd through the 24th.
So move.
Motion by David, supported by Kirby. Discussion? Not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. That brings us to item D, approved travel request for Councilman Kirby Metoxen to the American Tourism of Wisconsin 2022 Annual Conference in Wabeno, June 20th through the 22nd.
So moved.
Motion by Jenny.
Second.
Seconded by David. Discussion? Not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention, Kirby. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to new business. Lisa?
Just to note for the record that this travel conflicts with the June 21st GTC meeting, so Councilman Kirby Metoxen will not be in attendance.
All right, thank you for the note.
Pull a fast one, huh, Kirby?
I believe he indicated that when we scheduled the 21st,
kidding.
that this was a possible conflict.
Sure.
I want to be there.
All right, new business A, review the March sportsbook rules of play and determine next steps. We've got Jonas here to represent the review. Oh, you can turn your mic on. Green needs, there you go.
All right, can I make a note real quick that the April and the March are both the same, just that the April is the most updated. So they sent it in. We had to make a change, so we sent you another one. So April is the most updated one.
So we're looking to,
So you want item A deleted from the agenda?
If that's possible.
I'll make that motion.
all right, Lisa makes the motion to delete item A from the agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Jenny. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to item B, the April Sportsbook Rules of Play and determine next steps. Jonas?
So as I was saying, this is the most updated. There is going to be just one note to kind of be proactive that the commission would like to ask that in section 8B1, it's page 34, to replace the state had sent us back some questions. So we had sent the verbiage over to Game and Management. They consulted with IGT and approved. So we would like to change voided to refunded. And if we could make that change now, it'll prevent it from coming back in a week or two.
Lisa?
What's on page 34, like, we're looking at the BC packet, so we have different page numbers. So is it the red line version on page 34, or,
I think it's 439.
okay,
It's under section 8, you said?
Correct, under the tennis section. And the minimum length of play, the B1 at the end of all wagers will be voided. We'd prefer that to be refunded. There's been some confusion on bets.
No, it's not the page. Because B doesn't have a 1 under section 8.
What page is it in your book? 34?
34.
I believe we're looking at page 457 of the packet, section 13, tennis,
I'm sorry, yeah, it's tennis.
okay.
And-
Section B, minimum length of play,
Correct.
and then which item underneath there?
The first one, in the conclusion, the first set, all wages would be voided,
Will be refunded,
it would be refunded.
okay?
Just clarifying, Lisa, you said on page 457, and it would be that, in mine, it's a blue,
Blue, yes.
yeah, and then it's 1, and then the word voided to
Refunded.
Refunded.
all right.
I'd be okay with that, I just gotta, we have to think about how the motion should be, because we don't have it in front of us, and I think we talked to Ivory about including like that verbiage in the cover memo, and it's not here, so I gotta go back and find it.
So I think the motion would be to amend section 8B1, page 34, to replace voided with refunded, to provide clarity and consistency with the other regulations in that section.
But there's some other additional usual language for our motions when it comes to the gaming stuff. And I can't remember, it names a section that with amendments. Yeah, usually Brandon takes care of this portion for us.
Well, I think we could reference the page in the book, in the packet, because that's what we're taking action on page 457, item number 13, letter B, and then you could just say the first sentence should be amended to say refunded instead of voided, because this is the actual, what we're operating from. And if any other cleanup needs to be done, we can come back to it. Bring it back.
Lisa?
The language is on go 614D, but that might be different now with the amendments this morning, so.
Joanne?
Thank you.
The goal is to try to avoid having it go back to the Gaming Commission and then come back here. So the Gaming Commission needs to approve it first. You need to accept those recommendations. So in your materials on page 420, in the bottom of that box, action requested, it would be that action, and you would add the following language: as amended by the Gaming Commission to replace voided with refunded in section 13B1. And so that you have it on the record that the Gaming Commission approved it first, and you're accepting their recommendations.
Got it.
So moved.
I'll read it into the record if that's okay, Jenny. Just so that.
Lisa?
A motion to accept the notice of sports book rules of play approved by the Gaming Commission on April 12th, 2022, and direct notice to the Oneida Gaming Commission that there are no changes, there are no revised revisions under section 105-614D as amended by the Oneida Gaming Commission to replace voided with refunded in section 13B1. That makes sense.
Lisa makes the motion, seconded by Jenny.
Okay.
Discussion? Hand just went down, all right. No other discussion. We'll vote on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jonas.
So that takes care of item B. Item C was the add-on for the June 8th BC meeting reschedule. Lisa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, there was an informal agreement via email in response to a request from the treasurer to make some adjustments to the June 8th meeting. There's not a separate executive session scheduled in accordance with Resolution 11222A, which is the regular meeting of the BC schedule. So we're looking to schedule an executive session on the 7th at 10:30 a.m. and then start the June 8th meeting at 1 p.m. So the motion I'm looking for is to approve exceptions to Resolution BC 11222A and to schedule executive session discussion on June 7th at 10:30 a.m. and to start the regular business committee meeting on June 8th, 2022 at 1 p.m.
So moved.
Motion by David, seconded by Kirby. Any other discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next up is reports. None scheduled. Just go through them all. Well, 3 o'clock they start, looks like.
Actually, Kaylin's the only one between the 2:30 appointed start at 2:30. So we could address hers.
Okay. All right, go to operational report for emergency management, second quarter report. Kaylin?
Good afternoon. So for the second quarter, mostly what we've been working on is combining the rave. The nation currently has 2 rave contracts, one for the health center and one for the nation. We've been successful in combining those contracts together so that the health center will be using the current rave platform that we have. And I've also been working with some different departments within the nation to give them access to rave to work within their groups for alerting information. The emergency management, the governor's conference was in March. I attended that as well as Rich, and we both took the pre-training that was offered at that. Through that, we are in the process of providing several different trainings, actually 2 this week and some coming up in the future for damage assessment. So we'll be having some different departments within the nation trained how to do damage assessments coming forward. And then working a lot with just different departments that are opening up, providing PPE for the slow opening, and then working with departments that have been closed on updating their emergency action plans and ensuring that we're doing some different threat assessments and things like that in the buildings. And then I was off on vacation 2 weeks ago, and then last week I was in training for the FEMA Basic Academy last week in Oshkosh. But I know that going forward, we're just, that Nick has put something on, and I have reviewed on the portal for a virtual active threat training to be provided to the employees going forward. So those are the main things that we worked on over the second quarter.
All right, thank you, Kaylin, for the overview. Lisa?
I'll make a motion to accept the Emergency Management Department FY 2022 second quarter report.
Support.
So motion by Lisa, supported by Kirby. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, moving on to appointed boards, committees, and commissions. First one is accept the Anajon Resident Centered Care Community Board fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Starts on page 522 of the packet.
Motion to accept.
All right, there's a motion by David to accept the report. Is there a second?
Support.
Motion by David, supported by Kirby. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Item 2, accept the Oneida Community Library Board fiscal year 22 second quarter report. It's a motion by Lisa,
Second.
seconded by David. Discussion? Lisa?
Just noting that their report is indicating that they haven't been able to meet for lack of individuals on the board, so they're looking for ways to address it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Any other discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. That brings us item 3, accept the Oneida Environmental Resource Board fiscal year 22 quarterly report memorandum. Lisa?
Is Mark available? Hi, Mark. So in the packet, it's noting that this is something we discussed a while ago, and I don't think we ever gave like clear definitive direction or deadlines to it, but noting that through the Tier 5 budget cuts that occurred in the last term, the Environmental Resource Board was placed into temporary closure status, and then the staff was eliminated through that process as well. And the intent at the time was for the, I believe through the business committee and the prior general manager to look to the environmental health and safety area to see if it would be possible to absorb some of those duties within the department and what that could look like. I don't think that assessment was ever finalized. In the report today, it indicated that on March 30th, the BC area manager and supervisor reached out to Nicole about possibly finishing up that process and assessment. So I'm just wondering, I know that there's a lot of change happening in that area with new, directors and things. Do you think you could come up with a possible timeline as to when we could find a resolve to this?
Since I'm not really aware of all the issues around this topic, I'm not comfortable at this moment providing any dates.
Okay.
I can definitely have the discussion to learn about what is happening and put a timeline together.
Awesome, thank you. I'll make a motion to accept the report.
All right, Lisa makes the motion. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Kirby. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. That brings us to item 4, accept the Oneida Nation Arts Board fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Starts on page 531.
Motion to accept.
Motion by David, seconded by Lisa. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Brings us to item 5, accept the Oneida Nation Veterans Affairs Committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report. And we got visitors today. All right, guys, thanks for coming forward and representing your report. It's been a long time since we had someone here represent a report.
We thank you for having this opportunity. When we did get the opportunity to be in person or virtual, our veterans have struggled for the first quarter or the second quarter with attempting to get online, and we sincerely appreciate the support from the Secretary's office staff for providing us and getting us somewhat online. Now we're online, now we can go back in person. So our first meeting was last night, and we thank you for all the support, Lisa, from your staff. I'd also like to, first of all, thank the business committee liaisons for being present at our meetings. We've had, out of the last 3, we've had 2, and that's excellent because we always have questions. The veterans have questions they ask of us, and we can get the information, excuse the term, but straight from the horse's mouth. So it's good to have the liaisons available to us. So thank you for participating. Our reports in the packet, I've got a few updates, which I'd like to share with you, but if there's any questions on any of the report as submitted, please feel free to go.
Lisa?
I didn't have any questions of the report in particular. I'm just wondering if there's any, I know ONVAC generally participates in some travel, like large group travel, and I just want to make sure that we're working with the GAO to help you facilitate that, to make sure that any timelines that are needed for the agenda are being met. So just to extend them as a resource as well, in case you have anything upcoming.
Yeah, thank you. Our liaison just today we had discussion with us regarding preparing as for one of the things we're requesting within this report. Just the good news is on page 1 of our report, we now have 8 members of the committee. You all swore in Board Member Connor Kessel this past month, and he attended his first meeting last night, and it's really a joy to have some new young blood within the committee. He's now the youngest member of our organization. On the meeting section, we have it listed as we've been meeting on Microsoft Teams. The majority of our folks used the telephone versus the computer for the first 3 months of this quarter, for the months of this quarter, but we now have gone to in-person, so we're doing well with that, and again, with support from the Secretary's office. Just a couple of points under budget information. And this is in relationship to your question regarding travel. In fiscal year 20, when the Native American Veterans Monument was to be dedicated in Washington, D.C., we had gone through the process of requesting attendance at that for the full membership of the ONVAC committee. That was all approved, our arrangements were made, and of course COVID came and that was all dissolved. This is now going to happen on November 11th of 2022. Unfortunately for us, there's an issue there because that takes place in fiscal year 2023 as opposed to 2022. So we will go through the proper channels to, number one, get a request for a procedural exception or to get a number of extra number of people to travel. That's one. Second, we'll get estimates for hotel reservations, plane reservations, per diem, et cetera, and we'll present that to you in a request to utilize fiscal year 22 funding to fund into 23 because the event does take place in the next fiscal year's budget cycle. But we can't do the planning and wait for that money to come forward. We're going to have to do it in 2022. So that'll come forward. Any discussion or questions on that?
Larry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We don't carry travel over. I think there's common support here. The understandings that you're going to go, we already committed to that, but we don't carry travel budget. Once September 30th transacts, that money's gone. So you'll have to put it in 23. So we know you're going to go. I would suggest, unless the committee had any exception to it, plan as if you're going to go, make the arrangements with the pretense that 23 will allow for the resources. We just never carry travel budget over, just so you're clear. But I don't think anyone would object to your going. And I think if anybody would have issue to state that, but.
Okay. Understood. We'll just bring it back to the committee then as we generally would do and get those approvals.
All right, thank you. Tina?
Yeah, November 11th, you have from October 1 to November 11th to book a flight. So if you know you're intending to go and how many are going, you can plan accordingly, you can budget accordingly. Nothing precludes you from booking a room. So if you know how many people are going, you can book your room now. The only thing that you probably can't do is probably pay for your flight until October 1. But that doesn't mean you can't start looking at flights, end of September, even on September 30th, and then push the send button on October 1. Gives you plenty of time. And I don't know if they book flights that far out anyway with the airlines. And those would be subject to change too, because it's a shortage with the airlines as well. So I don't know that we need to do anything different. You could just plan accordingly, and it'd be nice that you can plan in advance. We hope that most people will do that otherwise, so thank you.
Thank you very much. That's well understood.
Thank you. Lisa?
I'm just noting as well, there is a business committee SOP related to the travel and expense policy. So specifically under section 16 of the policy, which talks about department travel, so it would be more than 3. I'm assuming it'll be more than 3. That SOP requires the request to be submitted to the business committee, especially with airfare, at least 30 days in advance. That doesn't mean you could do it sooner than that. So, like the treasurer was indicating, if you have budget dollars in this fiscal year, there's some things that you could take care of now. The sooner the better, and then maybe it wouldn't be such an issue for the next fiscal year. So, yeah.
Thank you. We've talked to our liaison and asked that we go ahead and put that on the BC agenda to get that out there as soon as possible.
Awesome, thank you.
We'll get that done. Thank you. The second thing within our budget is, once again, for the Code Talkers Day celebration, the ONVAC committee over the past 4 years, we had to skip 1 year, has hosted the Code Talkers tournament, golf tournament. We've never asked for tribal contribution for that. We've actually go out and we solicit whole sponsors and award sponsors, and we've been very successful in completing that. With the increases in prices, obviously at Thornberry Creek for food and golf, we've gone out and negotiated prices with them already, and so we're set up with that. But we'd like to utilize some of the funding under our special events line item within our existing budget to help defray those costs. So we will be using some of that fund. It's already approved, so it's already in our budget. So that's just a point to be made. I'd like to announce that the tournament is May 27th. We'll begin at 8 o'clock with the flag raising ceremony. So if anybody can attend, that would be graciously appreciated. Our veterans across the board, not just the ONVAC, but all the veterans will be there to raise the flags, and then we'll start with the shotgun start at 9. There'll be an awards ceremony and lunch afterwards, so if anybody is coming that wants to stay for lunch, we need to know that so we can account for people that might drop in other than your family members. You know, when Kirby comes to these, he brings the whole crew. Anyway, so that's that. Also, just want to make an announcement on Memorial Day, which is 2 days after the Code Talkers tournament. All of the veterans within the community are going to host a pig roast and booyah drive-by or drive-through food at the Veterans Building. That's following the placement of the flags in 7 cemeteries within our community in the morning, and then it'll be probably around a lunchtime, 1 o'clock, pig roast and booyah available for them, for the community.
Yeah, John, what time does do they start going to all the cemeteries?
They're working on that right now. There's a group from VFW, from WEVA, and from ONVAC that'll set that schedule up because they'll be going different places at different times because there's so much ground to cover and so many flags to put out. And then they'll end up at the Anna John Nursing Home, recognizing the veterans there as the end, and that's usually around 11 o'clock. So I can get more information to you as...
Right, I just had calls regarding the cemetery parade, is
right.
what I call it, but
Yeah.
I don't know, I figured 7, 8 o'clock.
Yes.
Start somewhere in there.
Probably more like 8. Most of the veterans are getting older. Jerry's saying 8 or 9. That's if he gets to vote. Anyway, okay, so those are the 2 things I wanted to highlight within the report. Also, we are now putting in our activities for the quarter within the document, and we'll continue to be placing pictures. We had some very nice pictures of the Sons of the American Revolution presentation to the Oneida Nation, and we pretty much ran that event. Bobby Webster set it up from communications, and then we ran with it and got it all set up. But I think we did some good pride to our community and to our nation by having the vets involved for that event. We did have we had a drum as we came in with the flags, and we also had the Oneida Hymn Singers National Anthem played at that particular event. Turned out very well, and we very much impressed the Sons of the American Revolution for recognizing us. That's all I have unless you have any questions.
Lisa?
I'll make a motion to accept the ONVAC second quarter report.
Second.
Motion by Lisa, seconded by Jenny. Any other discussion? All right,
I
not
just
seeing.
want to offer my chair a chance to say hello or something.
Well, my name is Jerry Cornelius. I'm the ONVAC chair. I just want to thank you guys for having us here, letting us enter the building.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if there's
Thank you.
no other discussion, we'll vote on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to item 6, accept the Oneida Personnel Commission fiscal year 22 second quarter report memorandum. As you can see, there's still several vacancies.
Motion to accept the report.
Motion by Jenny,
Second.
seconded by Tina. Discussion, Kirby?
Looking at the members, it looks like there's only 1 member. And the rest are vacant?
Correct.
Yeah, it's been posted several times, I think. Lisa?
So we have discussed this particular topic in the Government Administrative Office with the BCC supervisor and the BC area manager. We're looking to bring forward a more full report and some jumping off points, ideas, and changes that we could possibly make. to an upcoming work session. I'm not sure what that deadline is looking at right now because we're kind of in the midst of all the GTC planning and logistics. So I'm hopefully in the next couple months be able to bring something to the work session to have a further discussion on what paths we need to take in order to make some improvements, whether that be changes to their bylaws or whatnot. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Any other discussion? All right, not seeing, there's a motion by Jenny, seconded by Tina. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, brings us to item 7, accept the United Police Commission fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Starts on page 545.
Motion to accept.
It's a motion by David, seconded by Lisa. Any other discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Brings us to item 8, accept the Pardon and Forgiveness Screening Committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
Motion to accept.
Support.
Some motion by David, supported by Kirby. Discussion? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Brings us to item 9, accept the Southeastern Wisconsin Oneida Tribal Services Advisory Board fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
Motion to accept.
Motion by David,
Support.
supported by Kirby. Discussion? All right, not seeing, Lisa?
Just noting that there's some additional information included in this report, highlighted on the bottom of page 560, and then continuing on to page 561. Thank you. Some requests that they're asking about. If there's any questions about those, there are 2 representatives from the CIATS Advisory Board on the call, I believe Diane Hill and Michael Coleman.
All right, thank you. Looks like a budget request for 23, it looks like.
Yeah, I think part of it is so that they're looking to see if they can even do activities. So unless they're allowed to, they won't need to ask for money. So I think people don't understand the difference between the safer at home and gathering resolutions and, but yeah.
Good afternoon, it's Diane Hill. Just to clarify that was for the 2023 budget, but this afternoon per the, we just wanted to clarify if we were allowed to, but it was stated early on in the BC meeting, the restrictions.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think that's a question we get pretty regularly about the guidelines for gathering. So again, thank you, Lisa, for sharing. The resolution has expired, and so I think it's just up to the areas again to start planning and moving forward with activities, if they normally planned activities and things, trainings, and those things can all proceed, I guess, so.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Lisa?
And then I think as well through the, I want to call it the BMC, but that's not its name anymore because we just amended it.
BFF.
Oh, the BFF? Okay.
Budget and finance?
Yeah. So I believe through that adoption, there's some timelines included in there on guidelines for budget, so that stuff will be forthcoming as well. The GAO will be working with you guys as well to get that information to you, to whatever those guidelines are for budget increases or anything like that, that'll all be provided at a later date. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other discussion, there's a motion by David, seconded by Kirby to accept the report. Not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Can I just comment that I'm glad that they're at least looking forward for 23 budget, that they already have plans and they already have them out. So I think that's a good to have all that pre-planning done. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Tina. All right, that completes that section. We're moving on to elected boards, committees, and commissions. C1, accept the Oneida Election Board fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
Move to approve.
Second.
Jenny makes the motion, supported by David. Discussion. Starts on page 562 of the packet. All right, not seeing any discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Next up, accept the Oneida Game Commission fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
Motion to accept.
It's a motion by David, supported by Kirby. Discussion? All right, not seeing, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. All right, that brings us to the third item, accept the Oneida Land Claims Commission fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Starts on page 575. Good afternoon, Chris.
Hi there.
Aye.
All right, so I assuming you got some highlights you want to share?
Well, it's been a long time. I just want to say that I'm happy to be back. I was reappointed to the Land Claims Commission. We were closed down. We were one of several boards that were closed down during the pandemic, so I just want to let everybody know that. We did resume meetings in January, so that was the middle of the, I think, first quarter. And then when we did resume, we did have a lot of vacancies that needed to be filled, like other boards, committees, and commissions. So in our report, what we did was our goals are based upon our bylaws. So the first goal is to educate the membership and General Tribal Council on all land claims pertaining to land claims here in Wisconsin and New York. Our second goal is to gather input from the Oneida membership regarding the Oneida land claims. And our third goal would be to comply and forward all community recommendations and research on the Oneida land claims to the Business Committee and the General Tribal Council. So I just wanted to share some other administrative updates. We are still, because we're trying to get back on track with other boards, committees, and commissions, we have been meeting virtually, so we still are having some IT problems and problems getting into our records and our files in the H drive, G drives. We're still working through some of those problems. We did lose 2 of our commissioners during the pandemic, and that would be historian Loretta V. Metoxen. She was our previous chair, and also Chaz Wheelock has passed away too. So we lost a couple of historical figures that had a lot of knowledge for this board, and them are big shoes to fill, and I don't know if we'll be able to fill those shoes. But we do have a completely new board. The other problems that we were dealing with is we did not have access to all our records during the first quarter, not till this, like somewhere in the second quarter. We were able to gain some access to our office. And then during the pandemic, our office was moved. So that was another hurdle. Our office and all our supplies and our records are kind of in disarray yet because we just gained access to our office only like 2 weeks ago. So then were some of the pitfalls that we've been dealing with. We did complete our, some successes. So we reviewed our bylaws in the first and second quarter. We have new members. We have a new member here today. Carrie Kennedy is a new commissioner with us. Oh, and Don McLester, he's the vice chair, so I was voted in as chair. He's the vice chair. We have Commissioner Carrie Kennedy. We have Sheila Shano-Kasich and Dakota Webster is our secretary. So we did hold new elections. We have a completely new board. One of the things that I would like to highlight in our report as well is we did have some attachments of some, obviously, because we didn't meet for over a year. So we reviewed our bylaws, and they're currently at LRO awaiting to be reviewed. We do have attachments from previous pandemic pictures of when we were doing educational outreach and gathering input from the community and doing strategic planning with your board. We have like some pictures of our previous board members, but I also wanted to highlight in our report is that we have, let's see, the special request. I'm not sure what page that's on. It's towards the end of our report underneath the budget. So
that would be our page 585.
So respectfully, the Land Claims Commission was unaware that in the upcoming GTC meeting, there is a recommendation from the business committee to dissolve the Oneida Land Claims Commission. And so our special request in our report is that you permanently table that recommendation and that request indefinitely until the land claims is resolved. And I do have some reasons why we are requesting that to take place. One, we still have a land claim that is out there. I did look at the recommendations in that GTC packet, and there's a lot of things that are mentioned from 2014 and 19 and their previous land claims commission. And we have a new board. We have new leadership. We have a new board. I think it's kind of unfair to judge the land claims commissions based on those reasonings from things that happened from previous and past land claims commissions. 2 is the optics. 3, there is a promise that was made to the General Tribal Council by Chairman Delgado in 2014. 4, there was a Chief Counsel prior recommendation regarding the dissolution of the Land Claims Commission that was issued by Chief Counsel Jerry Hill in 1997 when the business committee and the chair for the business committee had made a recommendation to dissolve the Land Claims Commission at that time as well. Plus, there was like maybe 2-3 years ago, it was also brought up at General Tribal Council to dissolve the Land Claims Commission then. And at that point, it was actually, again, it was the GTC at that time decided not to do that, to dissolve the Land Claims Commission at that time as well. So I don't know why we have to keep coming back to this, why the recommendation is to be dissolved. I would like to meet and maybe strategic planning, work on communication if there's something that we're not doing that we should be doing, or if there's some communication issues that we need to take care of, maybe we could work on those things. Also, I think it was kind of unfair because for that recommendation to go out in a GTC packet and that the Land Claims Commission didn't have an opportunity to submit something in writing to refute that. One of the, to go back on those specific highlights regarding that issue, the optics. In 2014, our attorney Linda Locklear did report out to the Business Committee and the General Tribal Council the importance of optics. And she had stated to the General Tribal Council at that time, it is important that you do one thing to make it very clear to the public at large at this point, and the Congress in particular, that you will not accept the decision of the court and as the final ending of the Oneida Land Claims Commission. The Oneida Land Claims existed for 125 years before it was filed in federal court. Dissolving the Land Claims Commission, I think, presents very, very bad optics. It's telling basically everybody, not only within our community, but outside of our community, that this is not a priority. So that's one thing that I want this to bring to your attention. Also, it is, during that same report, Arlinda Locklear reported that the claim itself continues to exist like our ancestors have always done, and that you look for an alternative remedy. At this time, there is an alternative remedy, and that would be the congressional fix. And that congressional fix requires a negotiation. And a negotiation, in that negotiation, what we have been gathering is we are the go-between between the land claims, between the community at large, the General Tribal Council, and also the Business Committee. So if you look at the report from previous Chief Counsel Jerry Hill, where he writes a letter to the Business Committee, and he states specifically that the Land Claims Commission has a specific duty, and their duty is to be the eyes and ears and negotiation portion for the GTC at any negotiating that takes place regarding a land claims. So once we do get to the point of doing a congressional fix, you're going to be required to do some negotiating, because at that point you're going to have to decide what it is that we want, that we think is a fair resolve to our land claim. And at that point, Chief Counsel Hill had stated in this memo to the Business Committee at that time is that we are the representatives for the General Tribal Council at land claims negotiations. And that's here in this packet. And then the prior chairman, Delgado, at that time in 2014, had made a promise to the General Tribal Council and the Oneida community. And that promise states, we have never wavered in our pursuit of justice in our land claim, and will continue to seek justice, if not through the courts, then by alternative means. To assist us in the objective, the Oneida Business Committee has requested an opportunity to make case before the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. We believe Congress has a moral and legal responsibility to provide the Oneidas an alternative remedy. So with all this in mind, this is why the Land Claims Commission is requesting this special request regarding that you table that recommendation to the General Tribal Council to dissolve the Land Claims Commission.
All right, thank you, Chris. Making your highlights and your points. Discussion action from the committee. Jenny?
Question for you, Chris. At that, and I don't remember what year it was, I thought there was a motion at GTC to dissolve. What happened then? Was there a motion to table it?
I don't know. I've been trying to work with filing a request with records to find out exactly what happened. But obviously, it was not dissolved because we are still here. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe Chief Counsel knows because she's walking over here.
Okay.
Joanne?
So the Business Committee had placed on the General Tribal Council agenda a request to dissolve the Land Claims Commission because of the reasons that Chris has identified. It's in the materials on the May 31st GTC agenda. That is the same item. It was not addressed the first time it was presented. We have been unable to schedule another General Tribal Council meeting in the interim because of the COVID pandemic, and this is the first time it's being brought back to that body to actually take any action on it. So it has not yet been taken up by the General Tribal Council for discussion.
So then, Joanne, my question then is it in GTC's court to take action, or can we take action here?
It's not something that the Business Committee can do at this point because it's on an agenda that has been noticed to the General Tribal Council. It's already in their responsibility, and they have to reject or otherwise take action regarding that.
Okay, thank you.
Kirby?
So then, Joanne, are you saying then at that GTC meeting with that on the agenda, that's when the Land Claims Commission would then argue their point or explain their rationale?
That would be the opportunity, yes. I would point out that the difference in some of the information that's been presented to you is litigation versus legislation. Many of the activities under litigation were protected by attorney-client privilege. Therefore, a Land Claims Commission, between the Business Committee's actions and the members' need to know, was necessary. So based on those relationships and the litigation and the need to maintain attorney-client privilege, the Land Claims Commission was necessary. That's changed from that period to today. And so I agree with Chief Counsel Hill's analysis at the time. It was entirely appropriate and something that needed to be maintained. It is not the same condition that we're in today. We're in a much more open environment through the legislative channels. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joanne. Mark, you got 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to commend the Land Claims Commission for their continued work, their research, and all of that has taken place. We have some unfinished business with regards to our land claim in New York, as well as here in Wisconsin. I don't know if the Business Committee is aware of all the historical events that have occurred with regards to our land claim. As you know, we came here in 1821 and 1822, and we were given 7 million acres of land here. In fact, the United States government bought 7 million acres of land for the Oneidas here, and we entered into a joint occupancy treaty with the Menominees at that time. And back in the, we lost all of that land over a period of time, and the United States government passed the Dawes Act in 1887. What that act did was it allotted all the lands of the reservation throughout the United States that were held in common by the individual tribes. And so through that process, we lost a lot of lands illegally. Through our title search process, we had a title search program here operated by the Land Office from 1977 all the way up, I believe, until 1985 or 86, doing a land claims research here in Wisconsin. And we had a title search office here at that time that did a tremendous amount of title search. I don't know where those records went. And in fact, through that title search process, we regained the Norbert Hill Center. As part of the allotment process, this property here that we currently reside on and work on has never been allotted. It was set aside for school purposes, hence we still have this property. And Jerry Hill, our chief counsel back at the time, used to tell us that it's not over until we say it's over. As you recall or may not recall, there was general council meetings, numerous general council meetings with regards to our New York land claim. At the conclusion of our processes with our New York land claim, the council met and were pursuing a legislative fix in New York. And I don't know if you recall, but the tribe hired this company called the Cordish Company. And we spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years of pursuing our claim in New York. And the last that I recall was a legislative fix was to be directed to pursue that. I don't know what happened to that, where that's at. And then, you know, when you go back further into here in Wisconsin, all of the work here that's been done, it kind of fell off the map, so to speak, if you will. But the tribe had actively pursued a claim here in Wisconsin. And that's never been dissolved, and it's never been finished, and to this day, it's still sitting there. I don't know where all the documentation is, and I believe, like Chris is saying, probably a lot of documentations. It's here somewhere. Wherever it might be, I'm not quite sure. However, I would support the efforts of the Land Claims Commission to continue our process, and I believe that should be an item that's placed on our General Council agenda at some point in time to have this type of dialogue and to have this type of discussion. And I would also suggest to the Land Claims Commission that they call a special General Tribal Council meeting specifically for the purpose of regards to our land claims in Wisconsin and in New York. And a General Council meeting for that purpose only, because there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of research that needs to be done, and, you know, the untold millions of dollars, literally, that we spent with regards to the land claim. Not only that is our relationship with our relatives in Southwold in Canada and in New York. And we had a whole host of history, and I'm sure that there's a lot of interest with regards to this. It's kind of like, in my mind, I guess it's just kind of been sleeping. So I think we kind of need to wake it up and revise it. So I just wanted to make those comments in behalf of the support of the Land Claims Commission, because I too have often what happened? Where did all that go? And I believe if you research the record, you'll find that the General Council directed our Tribal Council to pursue our land claims here in the state of Wisconsin, and to the best of my knowledge, they never dissolved that. So that's just some of my memory. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. And knowing your time too is expired, just a brief overrun. All right, questions, comments? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Don McLester, Vice Chair. Concerning land claims, if we were to give up this committee, we're telling all other nations that we quit. And we said in General Tribal Council we'll never quit. You do not have a division in this organization to take care of land claims. You could pass it off to somebody else in here, and it's going to sit there. And we got to stop and think about the times that are happening right now. If you want to say the African American is going after things that have been done in the past, and they've been winning. The Cayugas went after some things in Canada, and they're winning. We have tribes out in the Southwest that got hundreds and thousands of acres back. All these little things are adding up, and especially with the African Americans. If they win all these courses and they get some kind of settlement for what was done to them, and they're not even indigenous to this country. And if you stop and think about it, the piece of land that we're sitting on today is not ours. This is not our roots right here. We protested. Our roots are in New York. And we want everybody in this country to know that if it wasn't for the Oneida people, and our land out there that they took from us and they stole from us, this would not be the United States of America. And if it wasn't for the United Tribe, we wouldn't be Americans. We'd be English or British or French. And if we give this up, we're throwing that all out the window and saying, we're not Iroquois anymore, we're just Oneida. There's a difference. We're Iroquois. So stop and think about what you're saying when you want to give this department up, because who's going to carry the torch? It doesn't cost our tribe a dime for us to be in office and try to look for and research these different things that are going on, and to bring it back to General Tribal Council and let them decide what they want to do. We have no help from anybody, none of us. The last 4 business committees, they wouldn't let us sit in on their agendas for land commission claims at all. Matter of fact, Loretta and I were escorted out of this room right here when they had meetings. We weren't allowed to sit in. It's a shame. But I'm proud to sit in this position. I want to see it keep going as long as I can. And if I got to tell General Tribal Council the same thing I'm telling you today, I will. Don't ever give up your roots. I'm sorry, I get. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don. I have one additional comment to make regarding the recommendation that's been made in the GTC packet. Now, I read through it, and there's some language in there that says there's other areas that can do the job duties and responsibilities of the Land Claims Commission. So I looked at that. I looked at the recommendation, and the recommendation was cultural heritage could take that job duty and responsibility. So just to follow up on that, I did go to cultural heritage and I asked them. I went through with our packet and I outlined all our bylaws, our job duties and responsibilities. Talked to the current director there, and then I talked to the previous director, Catherine Delgado. I talked to both of them, and neither one of them were aware that, one, this was on the agenda at General Tribal Council, and they were unaware of these job duties and responsibilities that we are currently fulfilling. And I was told that no, they weren't approached. They were unaware of all the job duties and responsibilities outlined by the Oneida Land Claims Commission, and they said they would not be able to do them job duties and responsibilities that are outlined in our bylaws. You know, basically at one time, they said they were approached when the Land Claims Commission did have a office over by the cottages. They were approached there to see if they could just take our records and scan them. But that was all they were asked to do. And currently they can't even do that because they don't even have the staffing to do that. So I don't know if you are aware of different areas that would be able to help move this forward. We would be glad to work with them, because I think our land claims is that important that we should all be in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. And if there's more people in there, that we could work together and collaborate, communicate, and move forward and gather that information that we need when we get to the congressional fix to encourage our members to support the congressional fix. And also the reports that weren't compiled yet before our pandemic. We have reports and dozens of meetings that we attended and feedback we got from the community regarding the land claims and their recommendations on how to resolve this. And that report will be compiled before the end of the year.
All right, thank you, Chris. Community member Carol, going to come up. You got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I support Chris's passion. What I don't support is the reports that had been coming back to General Tribal Council in regards to land claims. It was my understanding when the land claims litigation was over, as Arlinda had stated at a General Tribal Council meeting, that we needed to work towards a legislative fix. That though, in my mind, that was our marching orders, work for a legislative fix. Since that time, I have not that I recall that I've seen a report on the Land Claims Commission doing exactly that. I've read where they made trips to New York Oneidas, to Canada, where they've had listening sessions, but I think they need to change their strategy if they want to exist, and that strategy needs to be that congressional fix. What are you doing? What is your plans? Do you have a strategic plan in order to go to Congress? You know, are you making inroads anywhere in there? Who are you meeting with? Who are you educating on the Hill about Oneidas and the Revolutionary War? And I understand the passion of Don, you know, and I agree with him. You know, we are Oneida. People should know what we represent, who we were, who we are. And I didn't see or haven't seen any of that strategic planning to change this more to a legislative fix. I don't, you know, having a community meeting is great because is okay, but it's not going to answer the final question. How are you going to change Congress's mind that we're entitled? We should be compensated. We should be recognized. None of that, none of that have I seen. So that's my problem with land claims. I don't disregard the work that they've done right to this point, you know, but they got to change. They got to change the direction. They got to change their passion. They got to change their position to make the country, like Don said, aware of the Oneida Nation, the Iroquois Nation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol.
Mr. Chairman, can I do a quick response to some of her comments? I just would like to let you know, Carol, that this is a new commission. We have new board members, and we have new direction. Also, the previous business committee and the previous land claims commission did have strategic meetings, and they were working on them. I think we had like 2 or 3, maybe 2 strategic meetings, but then the pandemic hit and then new elections and so we need to go back to revisit those strategic meetings, and that was the next goal on our agenda, was to do a strategic plan and work on that congressional fix, because there could be that or other things that we could do besides that, as our attorney Locklear had outlined for us, was the strategic plan. So that was one of our next goals. And our recommendation as a Land Claims Commission right now is for the business committee to move forward with a congressional fix. And we do have some other ideas on how to pursue that in doing like lobbying perspectives and sending out mail-outs to all our community members where they can lobby their senators directly.
All right, thank you, Chris. It's our BC meetings law gives community members 1 time per topic and 5 minutes, but can be extended. And nope, it's one and done, unless you can get support from a council member here to provide you some additional time. David?
I was going to make a motion to accept the report.
All right, David makes the motion. Jenny seconds the motion. Discussion? Lisa?
Thank you. I appreciate the Land Claims Commission's request today. I think really this discussion is really for General Tribal Council to have at that level. I think when this business, because this is carryover business from the last business committee, so I'd really look to the committee members who were on council last term to really provide some insight as to why the request was on the agenda at the annual meeting. I know that when we talked about reaffirming that this term when we talked about reaffirming that request to General Tribal Council, it really had to do with the fact that there was no more litigation. And the Land Claims Commission, as it currently stands, is really talking about litigation and education as it relates to litigation. And the hope, I believe, at that point was to say, this committee, as it currently states, needs to be dissolved because there is no more litigation. And if we needed to recreate or implement something new that was focused on the legislation portion of it, that's something that could be done. But at this point, to re-establish and redirect, it wasn't happening. In 2016, the motion that Carol Liggins had made was at a budget meeting, and it was to dissolve the Land Claims Commission. And there was a bit of discussion at that point. At the time, the prior secretary, Lisa Summers, had made a explanation that she had understood what the motioner was saying, that basically that same thing that had nothing to do with the Land Claims Commission has no further work as it relates to litigation, and that we're transitioning to a legislative fix and what that should and could look like. The Secretary Summers had indicated that she would be working with the Land Claims Commission, because I believe that she was the liaison at the time, to move forward that strategic planning that you had been talking about. I know that there were a few sessions that were held. I believe the Land Commission itself was also involved in trying to clarify the roles and responsibilities of each of those entities, and that never got resolved even prior to the pandemic. So you guys, the commission may not have stopped meeting, but even prior to the pandemic, in those intervening 4 years, there wasn't a resolve to that point. So I think that was part of the discussion that the prior BC had as to why they were asking for this as well, as it relates to that, and then the missing reporting or lack of reporting as well. So I'm just wondering if you guys could kind of give some insight as to why the prior committee had requested the dissolution to begin with. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I can, I guess, restate what I can recall. So, you know, I guess going off what Lisa said about the information about going from litigation strategy, and the reason, obviously, Jerry Hill stated the importance of the Land Claims Commission through that litigation strategy, but we're beyond that now, so we're now moving down the road of that legislative fix, which is entirely a different process. And so, as Lisa stated, if General Tribal Council wants to continue to have, I guess, a board committee or commission in place with new directives and responsibilities, that would be appropriate for GTC to decide. But currently, with the current bylaws stating what they do, that it's just outdated. And so it's really up to General Tribal Council to decide whether to dissolve the current board or direct the business committee to make some changes to the bylaws. Updating it for legislative purposes is an option. But as Lisa stated, though, previously there was a lot of missing reports and not being able to get the reports timely, both to the BC meetings and then to the packets for General Tribal Council, that it just seemed like the board wasn't functioning as it should. And also noting that the litigation aspect of our land claims had essentially, the courtroom doors have been shut. And so there's other strategies, as I think we all agree on, with the legislative strategy to settle, I guess, that land claim, that going forward. So again, it was just the current format of the Land Claims Commission doesn't fit what needs to be done. And so those, I guess, all came together to make a recommendation from the previous business committee to dissolve the Land Claims Commission as it currently stands.
And that's specifically addressing just one land claims issue in New York, but there's potential, like Mark had brought forward, there's potential other land claims out there, including land claims here in Wisconsin. So, and that's not how our bylaws read. It reads all land claims matters, not just New York. And the legislative fix would involve negotiating some type of settlement. And them are some of the things that the board has been seeking input from the membership regarding settlement efforts.
Yep, so I guess as it sits, it's current discussion set for general tribal council, so everybody can make their arguments there, 2 and 4 and away from the commission. And so it'll be a general tribal council decision, as it was to create the board in the first place, so that decision is back before general tribal council at the end of the month. Lisa?
I just wanted to clarify, at that 2016 budget meeting, the motion that was on the floor from Carol Liggins was ended up being withdrawn after the explanation from Secretary Lisa Summers. I don't remember if I rambled that when I was talking earlier. Thanks. So there was no action taken. Thanks.
Thank you for clarifying that. And it's unfortunate, you know, I can't answer for things that happened in the past on this board as far as reporting and stuff like that. I know there were some administrative issues and things like that. So, like I said, we're a new commission. We got new direction and new leadership, and we got new members. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. If there are no other discussion, we do have a motion by David, seconded by Jenny, to accept the Land Claims Commission second quarter report. Jenny?
I have a question. So, I'm just trying to follow. So, you said you, with your new commission and your new goals were to focus on legislation with your new commission? With your
Well,
new members?
our recommendation to the business committee right now is to pursue a congressional fix. And that's also our recommendation for the General Tribal Council and the membership. But if you look at things that are taking place in court right now, nothing's ever final. I mean, you look at Roe versus Wade, I mean, that's about to be overturned, and that was a ruling that took place some time ago. So there are other court rulings and things that are taking place with other land claims that could affect our case, where we could bring it back before the court. So, and if you look at the recommendations from our attorney Locklear, she even says that, she said, you could go the route of a congressional fix, or you could look at other avenues. So we shouldn't just like put blinders on and say, okay, this is our goal and our focus.
Okay, well then I guess my question is, I guess for us, wouldn't that be our role as far as legislation? The business committee's role, legislation and negotiation? And then your role as a commission would be education about legislation. That's just how I'm seeing it.
I guess historically, if you look at the responses that were of the roles of the Land Claims Commission, part of their role was is to do education and outreach and be the body in the room that represents the General Tribal Council, obviously, because they can't all be in the room. And we were to.
But isn't that our role?
But that was the role that was outlined at that time. And that's still our role. It's, our role is to be, yes, because we're both elected by the General Tribal, or by the membership, and we're both representing the General Tribal Council. Yes, it is our role. It's written in the decision and recommendation from Chief Counsel Hill that states that we are representing the General Tribal Council in the negotiation process for land claims.
In my mind, I would just see that as a business committee role, you know, and your role would be education about the process.
Yeah.
That's just how I see it.
Right, but that's not how it is. We are to represent the General Tribal Council in the land claims.
All right, any other discussion? All right, not seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. There's a motion by David, seconded by Jenny, to accept the second quarter report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to item 4, accept the Oneida Land Claims Commission second quarter report. Oh, yep, Land Commission. I was reading it and just read words that weren't there. Oneida Land Commission.
Motion to accept.
It's motion by David. Supported by Kirby. Any discussion on the Land Commission, second quarter report? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. All right, that brings us to item 5, accept the Oneida Nation Commission on Aging fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
Motion to
Carol,
accept.
are you here for that?
Okay. All right, David has made the motion to accept the report. Is there a second before we go to discussion?
For Uncoa? Oh, okay,
Commission on Aging, yep.
didn't hear that.
Is there a second? Seconded by Tina. All right, discussion. Carol?
Good afternoon again. Our report is pretty self-explanatory. We had a lot of difficulty at the beginning when we were reinstated. We didn't have a quorum, we didn't know what was going on, and there was a lot of meetings that we didn't have. But when we did start having meetings virtually, it was a challenge because many of our members are not technically savvy, so having virtual meetings was difficult. But we managed, and with the help from the GAO staff, we were able to make some progress. Our intention is to, some of our goals are to work on our bylaws to make them align with the nation's boards, committees, and commissions law. And our goal is also to align our goals to those of the tribes, so that to the nation, so that we're all moving in the same direction with the same passion and the same efforts. We had our first face-to-face meeting yesterday, and it was so wonderful to see everybody, see their expressions, and watch the dynamics. It was such a blessing, really. And I guess one of the things I would like to encourage, because we are having elections, is that younger elders run for Uncoa, because we need their input as well as the older person's input. So encourage your elder friends, 55 and older, who to run for Uncoa. We'd be happy to receive them if I get back in. And even if I don't, I'd like it. Do you have any questions specifically for any part of my report, or the report that was submitted?
All right, don't look like Jenny?
I just have some words of encouragement. I know, we were on the Zoom calls on the outset, and it was a struggle, but I think Uncoa members fought through it and have learned so much about technology, hitting the right buttons, getting dropped off the calls. So I just sometimes it's a struggle.
Yes.
But I think you guys did an awesome job working through it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. No other questions or comments on the report. Thank you, Carol, for being present. If not, there is a motion by David, seconded by Tina, to accept the second quarter report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. Lisa, motion carries. All right, that brings us to item number 6, the Oneida Nation School Board fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Sasheen and Artley are here to represent the report. press the center button. The green light will come on. There you go.
I'm sorry, do you guys have to like accept the report first, or do we just?
If you want to go ahead and do an
Okay.
overview or.
So, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Sasheen Lawrence, and I was just recently appointed to, the chairperson for the school board, so I'm really learning these new processes, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a lot of work. But we have a lot of, good outlooks for our school system. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. My children have graduated from this school system. I've graduated from this school system. I feel like we need to give more resources to our children and youth who are choosing to come to this school. I feel like we don't give them enough, so one of our long-term goals is to start the talks of building a high school for them, a place where they can take pride and a place for them to display their awards. Currently, a lot of our awards are displayed at the Norbert Hill Center, and we don't play any games here. People in attendance don't get to see what past youth have accomplished. This was a project that was started a few years back, but then stopped because of the pandemic and stuff, but this is something that I am strongly supporting that we start again, and Artley probably has more insight on how we can do that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to renew more than anything else the capital improvement plan that began in the process. And pre-pandemic, we were right at the point of determining some of the programming that needed to go forward. We do have some of that in the next budget as well. But at the same time, I guess, just to parallel that is one of the critical points that that Sasheen has emphasized, is that as we look around us, I just want to put a preface to some of the things as reminders. Is that in 2007, for example, when we first, I was not part of that process, but when we first introduced the concept of a field house high school as a combined effort that's for the community, that there was only one such facility like that in the region. Today, in 2021, fast forward from 2007, there's now over 14 of those facilities that are multi-use community facilities for education and for athletics and for the community. I draw your attention as well as just an additional reminder that today in Indian country, Potawatomi, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, and Lac du Flambeau have multi-use facilities similar to that, I would anticipate that we would want to find a way to jump back into the first place versus being in the seventh place. So I just wanted to, as a part of that renewal process, suggest that from a school perspective, through the pandemic, we maintained, for example, at the high school level, over 135 students, which is our measure of capacity that we have. So with our student body in a building that was built in 1954, which we appreciate because we keep the best we can with it, but it's also a hindrance in terms of being able to compete with some of the surrounding school districts with the kind of facilities that they have put up. And in closing, just one last thing that I wanted to make mention of is in the discussion that I've had with a couple of elders of the community, one of the reminders that they made was that new buildings is a part of the community health because it creates a sense of pride. And they identified that as the Turtle School, for example, that even if they didn't have any of their children or grandchildren in a school, you know, they still bring their relatives to see what that facility looks like. So it's a part of that health as well, the social, emotional health of the community that comes from those facilities. So I just wanted to underscore, we're going through the process, but a part of that is a partnership between the business committee and the school board. And I know Sashin's already heard me say that a number of times at the school board meeting, is we have to have some joint discussions about how to accomplish. Because in the school process, we already have done this with the Turtle School through Federal Registers, that we recover all the dollars in the process of that investment. So it's, you assist in building the facility, and then it becomes a payback through the operation and maintenance of the facility in terms of those dollars. So it's a good investment over time. It's a 50-year investment in a new facility, maybe longer. But I just wanted to underscore that that's our intent, to renew the energy to, now that the pandemic is kind of in the rearview mirror, but that we need to be moving forward with those types of emphasis.
And I do just kind of want to mention that a lot of the huge questions out there, well, you don't have enough, your student body's small. Why do you want a new building? We don't have the resources that other schools have in our community. They're going to choose Southwest High School because they can offer them an auto shop class, a welding class. We don't have none of that. We have a basic education for them. And they are choosing to come to our school because they want to be part of something. So I'm strongly passionate about this program and about getting them a new school. I mean, I was there when we first opened the doors to the school in 1994, and they're still in the same little corner. The air, I was sitting down there, and the air down there was just stuffy, and you don't operate well, like if your mind is somewhere else, not comfortable. I think it's time for us to support them, show them that we care about them, and I think building a new school will bring in new enrollments. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Questions, comments, action from the committee?
I'll make a motion
Lisa?
to accept the report.
Oh, second. And Shasheen, I just wanted to say thank you and Artley for your presentation. You can see the passion, Shasheen, that you have for this. I'm glad you're where you're at with the school board. I think if you keep on keeping on, things will change. Thank you.
Lisa?
Thank you guys for the report today and the support for a new high school. I think it's been an ongoing discussion. We were talking about it when I was on the school board as well, and how to come to that. I think part of the question, I think general, there's going to be support, but it's how do you maintain it? You know, Artley, what you were talking about, the investment and how it gets built back and those sorts of things through federal funds. I think that's a question. I think another question is enrollment as well. Like, how are you foreseeing that to go? I think we've done a good job trying to do some trending and forecasting. I think the Language Nest has done that with their project that they're doing with expanding and the year over year. So I really think that's something that we need to see from the high school as well to really get the buy-in for the dollars. I think the concept, there's support, but then the dollars, that's where people are hesitant, right? Mm-hmm. So I think having that good solid foundation of trending information and also taking into consideration, you know, the issues that we're having around tribal enrollment, knowing that the number of youths that we have is smaller, how is that going to affect, if there's no changes, how does that affect, you know, forecasting moving forward for the high school? You know, what changes could be made there as well. So I think that's a good discussion. If we need to have joint meetings just to talk about this and trying to map out like what it could look like, you know, that's something that we can set up as liaison to the school board and chair. We can set up a joint meeting with the business committee and just kind of hammer it out and talk about it. I think it'd behoove us to include finance at that initial meeting as well, to kind of, as the subject matter experts on how to get the money where it needs to be, would be helpful as well, and probably somebody from planning like Paul or somebody as well. But even if we want to have those initial, I think that's something we can definitely do. Thank you.
Jenny?
Just real quick, I don't know if you were on the discussion at the last meeting when we had Sustain Oneida there. We talked about 50 years from now, And will we have enough Oneidas if we don't do something? So I think that's maybe something to pay attention to at Sustain Oneida, where we're going to go with it. How will we have children in 50 years for the school? Right. You know, for that. And then also for that CapEx for a new building, is that something, would that qualify under the ARPA funds, a new school? It wouldn't?
Not under ARPA, but tribal contribution savings, it might.
Yes, I'm sorry, that's the one. Two savings. And then what is that process?
I believe the school's already in the process of submitting one through the portal for the language nest. I think I sent that information over, the memo that came from Relinda when the portal was opened. And so that would be another opportunity as well.
Thank you.
Art?
Conceptually, one of the discussions that we've had is, and what we're doing right now, for example, in terms of the language nest and the high school, is we look upon this as a community inclusionary project, because we have our high school students working in the language in the nest, and that's been since the inception of the nest. So when you look at that projection, that was part of our conceptual discussion, is that the design, similar to the turtle, has to have that inclusion of the language immersion as a part of the high school as well. So however that works out from a concept standpoint, that is one of those discussion points that we want to make sure we're carrying forward.
Yeah, thank you, Arlie. And I think too, I've been a supporter of this endeavor over the many years as well, starting on the school board. I don't remember when it was, but I was on the school board at one time as well. And then onto the committee where we were pretty close to being able to, pull the trigger on getting this CIP initiated and going through the process. And then it just ended. So unexpectedly and unfortunately at that time. So, I still continue to be supportive of this project in the school, obviously a graduate of the United Nations school system itself as well. And so, and some of, I guess, to speak to some of the point that Lisa brought up about the long-term student numbers and the blood quantum issue, I think it's important that the more places we can gather our people, the more likely together they'll start a family at some point. So right now our kids are scattered throughout the community in 7 school districts, and it's no fault of their own who they choose to, start families with. But if you're in a large public school with a small Oneida population, the odds are you might not start a family with the handful of students or sometimes large populations of students in those school systems. So to me, I look at this also as part of that long-term strategy also for helping to sustain, Oneida through pulling our people together in our community so that they, obviously can meet one another as a starting point, but then also builds a stronger community, as I think Art had mentioned early on too, about the pride when you have a new facility like the Turtle School, and being able to bring our tribal members and other dignitaries through and be able to demonstrate what we're able to do with our tribal dollars over the long term. And so I think that's important. And then the other aspects of, again, being able to hopefully have space for, the building trades, auto mechanics, those types of things. When I was younger, those are things I looked into and did. And as old or young as I am now, I still like to dabble with that stuff. So I still like to build things from time to time and work on things. But building those trades and those skills are, those are lifelong qualities and attributes that can help you either find employment, gainful employment, and or save you money because you're able to perform something on your own house or your own vehicle in the long run. So either way, whether they stick it out as a career path or just being able to have these basics in carpentry or auto mechanics or welding can save you a lot of money in the long run, being able to self-perform a lot of that work in your own household or for family members or helping your grandma and grandpa out or whatever it might be is helpful in the community. So I think additional focus could be placed on those areas for our young people, specifically to be able to do that. I know the building trades are in high need of people who are willing to do that type of work right now, and the pay right now is more than I make, all of us make. So, just this, the sign of the things that, that the realm of possibilities, out there for our young people, have, the office job or be out there in the community building something for someone or for themselves, I think is important. And, people, when they get into those different building trades, they take a lot of pride in their work and being able to do that. And then if you're able to work within your own community in a department or as a contractor or subcontractor, building something in your community, I think we all take great pride in that. So again, I encourage the efforts to get this restarted and moving down the road again. I know, and we didn't really even talk about the athletic sports parts of it. I know that is also in great need in our community with a lot of tournament teams and things like that, having access to gyms for basketball practice or indoor softball during the winter or lacrosse and soccer, all these different sports. They go year round now. It's not a one season thing anymore. They go year round, especially if they're getting really into the higher end competitive sports for our youth. So I think that's another need that could be filled by this project is additional fields and indoor practice areas for throughout the the whole season. So again, I encourage the school board to move forward, and again encourage the business committee if they're not aware or need to learn more that we go ahead and have these sit downs and bring up the old plans and start there or start from scratch. I just want to see something done in the next couple of years anyway. I think it's important, the school system here sharing this building. I pretty much grew up my whole life in this building, I think. Had started through high school, pretty much in this facility. I think it was like 1 year when the Turtle School was first built, was over there, and then back to high school over here. So, and then, I don't know, 10, 11 years here working in this types of positions. So I've been in this building a long time.
I escaped for a little while. We started Head Start together and all that.
Yeah. So again, just my words of encouragement. Thank you. Any other comments? If not, we have a motion by Lisa, seconded by Jenny. All right, we'll vote on that motion to accept the report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Yonko? All right, brings us to the last elected board committee commission, the Oneida Trust and Enrollment Committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Jenny makes a motion. Supported by Kirby. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to standing committees. D1, accept the Community Development Plan Committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
So moved.
Second.
There was a motion by Jenny, supported by Lisa. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Brings us to item 2, accept the Finance Committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Motion by Kirby, seconded by Jenny. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 3, accept the Legislative Operating Committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Motion by Kirby,
Second.
seconded by David. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. That brings us to item 4, accept the Quality of Life Committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Motion by Kirby, seconded by David. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Brings us to the next section of other. Number 1, accept the Oneida Youth Leadership Institute fiscal year 22 second quarter report. Motion by Jenny, second by David. Discussion? Kirby?
I've not been nominated, attended, or been a member of the Youth Leadership Institute.
Thank you. Lisa?
Just noting that they currently have as indicated in their report on page 635, they currently have a full board. However, they have a few board members that wish to step down. So if they're looking for new applicants, as always. Yes. So if anybody on the call or in the room has anybody that's interested or qualified, their qualifications are posted on the website. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Any other discussion? Not seeing, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. All right, that brings us to General Tribal Council. Item A, approve the notice and packet for the June 21st, 2022 tentatively scheduled special General Tribal Council meeting. Lisa?
Thank you. There was one handout associated with this that was distributed to the business committee yesterday. Just going over the items of note on page 637 of the meeting packet. On page 7 of the meeting packet, it's page 7 noted on the bottom footnote because I had no idea where it would land in the packet. The COVID-19 safety protocols are the same as previously discussed and approved at the April 13th BC meeting, which include a requirement of masking. Pages 8 and 9, regarding the possible cancellation of General Tribal Council, it's been updated to remove reference to resolution 32322B, the public gatherings indoor outdoor safety guidance, because that has expired as of April 27th. However, the guidelines included in the memo include that same guidance of the low COVID-19 community levels. So with that one, we just need the business committee to determine if they'll continue to use this guideline with no resolution, use a different guideline, or if the business committee would like a new public gathering guidance resolution created.
All right, discussion with the committee. Request to determine, continue with the guidance without a resolution. Or Lisa?
I myself don't believe that a resolution is necessary at this point. I believe the guidance that the community and everybody receives from the CDC, from the Wisconsin DHS, and from our public health officers should be sufficient to make determinations moving forward.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Kirby?
Support.
Second?
I don't think we need a motion, I think, at this point.
Just a
Question, if everyone's comfortable, I guess, with
That's what I was gonna say.
going forward
is
with just,
whatever we had before works.
Yes,
main-
please.
maintaining the notice that's in the packet as is.
Okay.
David or Tina, any feedback?
I'm okay.
All right,
This packet's a little different. On page 13, there's a memo from the secretary noting that this particular item, which was the petition from petitioner Dallas, was previously scheduled and noticed for a GTC meeting and would have been presented in 2020. There were no changes to any of the materials included in this packet. So none of the analysis were updated. It's being presented just as it would have been back in 2020. On page 107, this is the recommendation for the petitioner Nebraska petition regarding the increase of GTC meeting stipends. It was outdated, so that is the handout that was provided. I believe Chief Counsel, and wrote the initial one from last year or the year before. And I asked her to provide some updates, so that's included in the handout as well. And that there's one blank for a date that I would pull from the materials that are saved in the file for that. I'll come back to the subpoint for the consideration from the petitioner on that one. Petitioner Lori Elms submitted about 50 plus pages of supplemental materials. We don't have a rule or anything on a limit, but because of that, it puts us over the identified max pages that we've been working with printing for a number of years, which is they're looking for 180 at the most. Total. When we push to that 200, their machines can handle 200, but when you push to that 200, it tends to have problems. So it's easier on the machines when we keep it around that 180, 190 mark. That was the discussion. So some of the options would be to remove some of the information that's available on the website. I know that we did that once before with a Sustain Oneida presentation. Another option would be to print some of the pages 2 by 2. So I'm just looking at guidance from the committee on how they'd like to handle that. And then page 190 to 204, these are slides from the Comprehensive Housing Division in response to the Elm petition. These were not previously submitted and should be reviewed. If they're approved for inclusion, we would adjust the agenda accordingly to note that there'd be a additional presentation. And then the last note is that the business committee recommendation for this item, the only thing that changed was the date had been updated.
All right, thank you, Lisa, for the overview of the packet.
So I guess the question is what we'd like to do with the 50-plus pages of extra petitioner supplemental information.
Has that stuff been reviewed to be appropriate?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask. I know it was sent over to CHD, and I believe they consulted with Attorney John in their response.
Okay. I see Lori has her hand up. Lori, do you have?
Yeah, I got 5 minutes. Sorry, Chairman Hill. I would just say that I don't mind them linking them as long as they tell the people where they are.
Thank you, Lori. That'll help. That'll help. So that'll cut down. I think that might bring us down because I think there's the Constitution, and then I believe two laws and a rule, or a rule and 2 laws that are included. So that might be able to bring us down. Thank you.
All right, there's that question answered.
The next was comprehensive housing's response, if the business committee would like that included in the packet.
What page number on the packet?
829?
Oh, it's only 100 pages.
829, yeah. I was like, 830. This is just the slides, and they did provide a, like a voiceover version. I'm assuming they'd just be, reading the points included in the slideshow.
Yes.
And you fine with it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe if Joanne can confirm, I believe they work with Attorney John on the creation of this as well, so that has been vetted through the law office. All right, so I will adjust the agenda accordingly. Now I have to go back to the top because I don't know. And then the last question, and the bullet, little sub-bullet on page 637, Mr. Nebraska informed the BC area manager last week sometime that he would like to know if it'd be possible to reschedule his petition from June 21st until the next GTC meeting due to a personal matter. So she had notified him that we would take up that request at this meeting today. I think if we were to move it to the next GTC meeting, that would put it to July. Generally, we haven't been putting petitions on the semi-annual, annual meetings because those agendas end up being full with reporting and legislative requests. After that, we have not scheduled a special meeting, but I would be okay with him being moved to an upcoming special GTC meeting.
Tacking it on
It
to
would be
another
after,
one?
it would end up being after July, though.
After July and before the budget?
But before the budget, so we, it would be a separate one. I know there's, we've planned budget-wise for up to seven meetings in a month, or in the calendar, fiscal year, excuse me. And I believe in the past, when requests from petitioners have come forward to say, can you defer my item to a different one because I can't be there? It wasn't on this early in the process. It was like later on when the meeting was noticed, the materials had already gone to print. It was like the week, the weeks of the meeting. So I would just like the business committee's input on how they like to proceed. Thank
Tina?
you.
So what if we just leave it on the agenda, and then when we get to that item, ask them to defer it? Ask the membership to defer it, then we don't have to do anything. I don't know, I mean, not that we won't have to do anything, but then it's been addressed and it gets deferred, or,
Lisa?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's an option as well. I think that there's some considerations with that as well, because if he's not there to represent it, then he's not there to answer questions from his petition. He could assign somebody to represent it. Additionally, if it's not addressed, then it dies and doesn't come back if there's no action on it at all. So I think that's something that I believe the petitioner might be concerned about if he's not
What
available.
if we propose that to him? Say, what if we leave it on and then ask the membership to defer it and see what he says? Maybe he'll say yes, maybe he'll say no, and then we have to think of something else.
David?
Then we just put it on a later one.
What is the protocol for this? Usually when it's a petition that was filed and we had so many days to get it on the agenda, I understand he wants to delay it, which is, I can understand that, why he wants to delay it. But it hasn't been noticed yet, right? This is the time to notice the GTC, so if it's the time to make
It
the
doesn't
change.
get noticed until 10 days prior to, we'd engage in the printing
I would be
process.
okay with moving it to the first special meeting after the semi-annual and not the budget meeting. I would support your request. That you
Just
presented
the
us.
question that you had about the protocol for petition and submittal and
The
review.
timing of it, that's what I'm worried about.
It's 180 days, but I believe, I don't think that we ever the business committee took any action to address tolling timelines for petitions as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. I feel like I asked about it a while ago, but knowing that, when they're starting to come in and now we're, hopefully being able to meet.
I just want to make sure that we're not in violation of any law that we already have in place, and then that would put us in the wrong area, so I don't
Thank
want to be
you.
there.
Joanne?
The resolution identifies that there's a specific amount of time in which the business committee must submit a petition to the General Tribal Council. The emergency management law and the public health declaration has sort of told all of that with no additional action needed. If we can't hold a General Tribal Council meeting for any reason, we can't bring it within that timeline. If this is not presented at a reasonable time, once you start scheduling General Tribal Council meetings, I would suggest that you would begin to have problems with that timely return of a petition to place it in front of the General Tribal Council on an agenda. My recommendation would be to leave it on this agenda unless you have a written notice from the petitioner that they agree that the timelines do not apply to his petition, and it can be placed on the next available special General Tribal Council meeting agenda. In part, the Business Committee has taken time to arrange all of the materials facing the General Tribal Council in a meaningful manner, so that hopefully the items can be completed and that they're related to each other. This meeting consists of all the petitions in front of the Business Committee today that are requesting to be presented to the General Tribal Council.
Thank you, Joanne. Kirby and then David.
And listening to Lisa, I like what Tina said, just leave it on there, let them decide, but my concern with doing it that route, could there be a possibility, because it's on the agenda, somebody make a motion to delete it from the agenda and it's squashed or it goes away? That's my only concern. If we leave it on there and it goes before the people, before General Tribal Council, and somebody makes a motion to delete it. And if it's second and call for the question, can it go on a vote that quick before anything is done? That would be my concern.
Joanne?
That could actually occur regardless of whether the petitioner is there or not. That's something that every person faces, including the Business Committee, when you put items on the agenda, that it simply gets deleted without any references to it. The General Tribal Council has not, step back. When looking at the General Tribal Council, they're deleting it from an agenda doesn't mean that it can never be brought back. The threshold of gathering 50 signatures is so low that it's not prohibitory in any way, shape, or form. So if this matter gets placed on the agenda, the General Tribal Council deletes it, it can simply be re-presented in a petition. And the fact that we have 180 days, it's 180 days to get an item back in front of the General Tribal Council directive out there, actually moves these items forward fairly quickly. So the deferral, to place it on the agenda and have it deleted is not a prohibitory action. It's a nuisance. I'm not going to deny that. But it doesn't prohibit someone from bringing something back again. Given the time between now and that meeting, knowing that these agenda items have already been prepped and placed in the materials packets to be published, it's not an undue burden to the petitioner to have it deferred to another meeting from that agenda, to be taken from that agenda, or to have someone else present his materials.
All right, thank you, Joanne. David and Jenny?
I'm just concerned that if we have it on the agenda and he's not there to present and they table it, it's kind of like a wasted meeting then, because we only can really tackle two topics, and that gives them another reason to have another meeting. If we know this now, why don't we just postpone it and have it afterwards on a special meeting? It's like we're being noticed already because he's telling us that he can't make it because he has to have some kind of a procedure done or whatever it is. I don't want to know what it is, but anyhow, it's a personal reasons that he can't make it. But the fact of it is that we know this now. Why not just accommodate it now? And I'm not in no big hurry to have this one heard anyway. But I mean, I definitely know we have to hear it. But I'm more or less saying if it can be delayed, I'd prefer to delay it. But that's just my opinion. So I'll go with the consensus, whatever it is. But thank you.
All right, thank you, David. Jenny and then Lisa.
Lisa, do we have any other, after the July annual and the budget, are there any other items that we need to get addressed, to get caught up?
Other items pending.
Pending.
There are pending items such as the food sovereignty initiative that's supposed to come back to DTC. I believe that's looking to come back for the July meeting, but I didn't see any materials for it yet. That had to do with the follow-up from an ag strategy. I believe there was also a referendum question regarding a comprehensive language plan that's still pending.
Okay.
I believe that is all.
I just don't want to have to come back for a special meeting for that one issue.
Sure.
Okay. So I'd be okay with.
And that doesn't mean we won't have anything between now and then anyway.
I'd be okay with pushing it off to a future meeting down the road. Because then that only leaves the funeral home and the real property to law for this meeting for June 21. Plus, I would pull out your papers from the packet. And you might be under that number.
All right, action of the committee, Lisa?
I just had a question about budget process, so, I know we just indicated, well, we want to make sure we get it done before the budget, but budget roll-up's gonna happen, like, it's gonna be a tight turnaround for everybody. Like, we're saying that we're gonna have this resolution ready by June 1st, and then it's gonna have to go out the door, so essentially, I mean, it's gonna be really, really tight for everybody. So, my assumption from the discussions that we've had in the past about GTC directives is if the budget's rolled up and then we hold this meeting and it directs that it's approved, there's nothing that needs to happen at the budget meeting necessarily because it's a GTC directive, so the spend would just occur? Or would there have to be like an amendment on the floor to make the change?
Use your mic.
I would just suggest we plan for the increase and then have a savings rather than an over expenditure.
And if the committee's fine with that, I think it's just some guidance that the government administrative office needs to know, if that's what we want to do because of the tight turnaround, to make sure that we're planning properly as well. But I know that she's planning to bring some of those questions to the business committee as well in a work session, just so that we can all have a more clear understanding of that. So I'd be okay with removing it and directing myself to come back with some dates in after July. After July 19th, I think, is the date, so.
All right, Kirby?
With the scenario that was just proposed by Tina, that budget for it, and if it doesn't pass, then there's savings. My concern is then to be honest with General Tribal Council, because the question's going to be, is there money in the budget? I would have to ask the CFO, do we have the money in the budget? His response would be yes, then they would push it through.
And that's my fear too. You know, I would prefer not to put it in the budget, you know, because.
But if we do got it, to put it in the put
But
it in the
that's-
budget.
It's not that simple, guys, let me just tell you, okay? You know, if we don't plan for it and we know it could potentially happen, it could pass on the floor and they could direct us right then and there to find the money in the budget, and they can make an amendment right on the floor. There's nothing that's happened before, there's nothing stopping that from happening. And, you know, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense not to plan for something that you know potentially could happen. And again, I'd rather have, you know, a savings in a line than an over expenditure in a line, because this is a big line item, it's not. And I think the other thing is everyone doesn't understand how much really goes into that, compiling that budget. It's not just changing a line here and changing a line here. There's so much more that goes into that whole packet of the budget itself, the actual numbers.
But I'm afraid that same thing, that they're gonna, well, it's in the budget. You already put it in there, pay it out. you know.
So if we have a meeting, you know, come September on this, we're still gonna have to do it. You haven't saved anything, you haven't definitely saved us any work, then we're scrambling. Then we're scrambling
You got a
because we're
point
gonna
of
have a
order?
budget 2 weeks later. We're gonna have a budget meeting.
Point of order, Lisa?
It's just the question that we're talking about is whether or not this item should be on the agenda. So I know that my question was about timing, not about process, really, because we're gonna have to figure that out. Like you said, regardless of when it's held, we're gonna have to figure it out, right? So I guess the timing is the question, and if we're gonna have to make adjustment regardless of when a special meeting is held, I think that question's been asked and answered.
David?
When did we plan for the gaming to come back for the GTC? Was that in September? No, later. I was just wondering, because I thought it was September that we were gonna bring that back to the GTC.
May, June, and July is all we had, I thought, on the books for a potential meeting. I don't think we went any further.
I don't recall what they asked for.
It was in that work meeting, special work meeting.
Yeah, I
Okay.
want to say it was November they had requested. Well, either way, different topic. So the packet, looking to approve the notice in the packet for the June 21. I think we cleared up a lot of the questions that were outstanding. So we're looking for action. Lisa?
I'll make a motion to approve the notice and packet for the June 24th, 2022 tentatively scheduled General Tribal Council meeting with the noted change to the agenda to include a spot for the CHD presentation. And to potentially remove the Nebraska petition to a future special GTC meeting date contingent upon receiving agreement in writing from the petitioner.
All right, Lisa made the motion, second by Jenny.
I think that makes sense.
Made sense to me.
Okay. Oh, well, it's a quick deadline because of the,
Print schedule.
yes, give me one moment. By noon on Thursday, May 12th. That's when I would need the written confirmation from him by, so I'll reach out to him when we're done here. Because the deadline to send this material to printing is tomorrow. Thank you.
Tomorrow, 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, there's the motion before you. Any other discussion on the topic? All right, not seeing any, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstentions, motion carries. All right, I believe that concludes our open session portion of actions. Give me a second to pull up our, Lisa?
I'd just like to poll the committee and if they have any questions on the additional requested action that Chief Counsel sent out, because if they do, we would need to go back into executive session. I believe it related to the contract review of the grant from the state. For the, our portion of the $7 million ARPA-related funding.
Any, do we need to go back into exec?
No.
Everybody's okay? All right.
Want to make sure. Can't ask questions now, Kirby.
All right, item number 1, accept the chief counsel report.
So moved.
Motion by Jenny.
Second.
Seconded by David. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Subsequent motion to approve attorney contract with Hush Blackwell LLP, contract number 2022-0352.
So moved.
Motion by Jenny.
Second.
Second by David. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion, one abstention. Tina, motion carries. Subsequent motion to approve the attorney contract with Attorney Thomas, contract number 2022-0349.
So moved.
Motion by David, seconded by Jenny. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Subsequent action number 4, motion to approve publication by Professor Oberly regarding United States v. Cook.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa,
Second.
second by David. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Lisa?
Subsequent motion to approve the grant agreement between the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration, Division of Intergovernmental Relations, and the United Nations, file number 2022-0284, and authorize a limited waiver of sovereign immunity.
Second.
Motion by Lisa, seconded by David. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Under the general manager, suggested action is to accept the general manager's report.
So moved.
Motion by Jenny,
Second.
seconded by David. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Third item, suggested action is to accept the gaming general manager fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
So moved.
Motion by David,
Support.
supported by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Item number 4, suggested action is to accept the retail enterprise fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
So moved.
Motion by David, seconded by Jenny. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Fifth item, suggested actions to accept the human resources fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Kirby, seconded by David. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Moving on to audit committee, suggested motion is to accept the March 17th, 2022 regular audit committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Jenny,
Support.
supported by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Subsequent action is to accept the audit committee fiscal year 22 second quarter report.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa, seconded by Jenny. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Third action under audit committee, suggested action to accept the 4-card poker rules of play compliance audit and lift confidentiality requirement.
So moved.
Motion by Jenny,
Support.
supported by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. That brings us to new business. Suggested action is to approve the BCDR 05 contract amendments, file number 2016-0862.
So moved.
Motion by David. Supported by Tina. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Item number 2, suggested action is to accept the discussion as information.
So moved.
Motion by David,
Support.
supported by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Third item, suggested action is approve the BCDR 09 contract amendment, file number 2021-0563. Lisa?
For the record, noting an updated amendment was provided as a handout.
All right, thank you.
Second.
David makes the motion?
Second.
And then Lisa seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 4, suggested actions, accept the April 4th, 2022 BC Officers Meeting Notes.
So moved.
Motion by David, seconded by Jenny. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 5 is to accept the May 2nd, 2022 BC Officers Meeting Notes.
So moved.
Motion by Jenny.
Support.
Supported by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion
Abstained.
carries. 1 abstention, David. Motion carries. All right, that concludes our agenda for today. A motion to adjourn at 4:40 would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by David,
Support.
supported by Kirby. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right, Yonko, everyone.
Yanko.
Have a good
Nagiwa.
evening. Yonko, Nagiwa.